Chapter 1842. Although the real estate purchase process wasn't as fast as expected, after Old Man's son gave the landlord an irresistible price, the landlord very quickly contacted the duty room to let the future owner go. The manager stared at Lotus' son in utter astonishment. Was this what it meant to speculate on abilities? It was almost 8 o'clock at night, and Wang Ling was calm. He had finished all his homework at school today, so he could carry out his tasks without any worries. Handing in homework on time was also a manifestation of commitment and responsibility, and Father Wang was a very responsible person in this regard. Like many people who had already graduated and started working, he would occasionally dream of being criticized by his teacher for not finishing his homework. In the end, when he woke up with a start, he realized that he had already graduated and started working for several years. Holding the master key given to them by the duty room, the three of them took the elevator to that video blogger Li Xian's apartment. When they reached the door, Lotus' son knocked politely. "Excuse me, is anyone home?" As she asked, she released her spiritual senses to check the apartment. After confirming that there was no one in the apartment, she opened the door with the master key. Wang Ling felt that this scene was a little familiar. In his memory, for example, Xiang Yi, the new guest official of Battle Sect, was an expert in this area. Back then, this guy had honed his skill at picking locks in an uninhabited wasteland, and had forcefully pried out the wealth of an empire. Wait! Just as Lotus' son was about to push open the door and enter, Yu Yueqing called out to them. She took out a miniature camera from her storage bag, and hung it on the lapel of her Taoist robe. Wang Ling frowned. Somehow, he felt that this miniature camera looked a little familiar. What's this? A miniature camera. It's the same thing as a law enforcement recorder. Although you're the landlord now, if something happens in the apartment, it'll be hard to explain. So it's very important to prepare in advance. Saying this, she cupped her red face as if she was showing off and said to Lotus' son, "To tell you the truth, this is Wang Ling's second birthday present for me." Speaking up to this point, Wang Ling instantly recalled the origin of this camera. In theory, this wasn't a gift from Wang Ling, but a token of Father and Mother Wang's goodwill. After all, Father and Mother Wang would arrange birthday gifts for Yu Yueqing every year during the best years of the Wang family's relationship with Yu Yueqing. Even if Wang Ling didn't arrange it, Father and Mother Wang would do it for him, and then have Wang Ling enchant them or add a blessing buff to them before giving them to them. Then, Wang Ling would be the one giving the gift. So don't underestimate this tiny camera. After being enlightened by Wang Ling, it could actually record things that other people couldn't see. All these years, Yu Yueqing had taken good care of the camera, and it was as good as new. She naturally noticed the magic of the miniature camera in her hand, and marveled at the power of modern cultivation technology. After all, there really weren't many cameras on the market that could directly capture ghosts, and use the lens to directly transcend. Thus, Yu Yueqing had always been very moved. She knew that this miniature camera had to be very valuable, but she never expected Wang Ling to actually give it to her as a birthday present. Seeing Yu Yueqing showing off, Lotus' son also felt a little helpless. It would be unrealistic to say that it wasn't sour. Her mouth was filled with bitterness. At the same time, she was a little envious of the childhood friendship between Yu Yueqing and Wang Ling. She had never experienced these things before. But in front of Yu Yueqing and Wang Ling, she couldn't appear too restless. Otherwise she would definitely be treated as a joke. But it was still so annoying, she roared in her heart. Just like the groundhog standing in the mountains. "Come on, let's go in." Once everything was ready, Yu Yueqing flicked her horsetail whisk with a smile, and gestured for Lotus' son to push the door open. Taking a deep breath, Lotus' son straightaway turned the doorknob, and then accurately found the light switch to turn on the room. The apartment wasn't too big, being less than 40 square meters, but it had all the essentials: a kitchen, a bathroom, and a balcony. Conch apartments were apartments for young people, and were built in an entrepreneurial zone. They also received an annual subsidy from the higher-ups, so the rent wasn't particularly high. Li Xian was only 16, the age of a student. Furthermore, she had only recently started thinking about going out to work, so where did she get the rent from? It was impossible to ask the previous landlord about this. There was too much information on the tenants. If they asked the previous landlord directly which one was Li Xian, the previous landlord would probably be dumbfounded. Wang Ling looked around the apartment. It was clean, tidy, and could even be said to be spotless. Even if it was a girl's place, it was still a little too unworldly. Lotus Sun and Yu Yueqing looked around, but didn't find any valuable clues. However, it was precisely this extremely clean room that made the two women suspicious. I think it's strange, Lotus Sun said. As a girl's room, there doesn't seem to be anything special in the wardrobe except for some girls' clothes. Everything is very clean, so clean that it looks like someone has cleaned it on purpose. Yu Yueqing agreed with Lotus Sunday. I agree with Miss Sun. There's definitely something wrong here. As she said this, she started to play with the video camera. From the moment they had entered the room, the video camera had been clean and hadn't captured anything strange. Yu Yueqing frowned. Her sixth sense told her that there was definitely something wrong with this room, and it was very big. Wang Ling, what do you think? She asked curiously. When she turned her head, she saw Wang Ling looking at a white wall. She hurriedly used the video camera to take pictures of this white wall, but still didn't find anything. Is there something wrong with this wall? Yu Yueqing asked. Wang Ling didn't answer immediately. He had indeed noticed something, and was hesitating about whether or not he should do something about this problematic white wall. But at the same time, he felt that it was a little too early to do anything, and could easily alert the enemy and expose a lot of problems. Thus, after some hesitation, Wang Ling withdrew his hand. The fact that Yu Yueqing hadn't captured anything unusual seemed pretty normal to Wang Ling. After all, this birthday gift was almost 10 years old, and it had been done using version 1.0 of the enchantment spell, and he had done it in a perfunctory manner back then. Although the enchantment spell was more powerful than a regular video camera, it wouldn't be able to solve a serious problem. Take the current situation for example. The white wall they were facing. Wang Ling was the only one who could see the cryptic runes on the wall. Wang Ling was certain. These were the marks left behind by the Ancient Ones. Chapter 1843. It was already late at night. When Wang Ling faced this wall full of cryptic runes that ordinary people couldn't see through, he immediately knew that this was no longer something that Lotus Sun or Yu Yueqing could get involved in. If he continued to investigate with them, they would definitely run into danger. Even if he had already strengthened Lotus Sun to this level, these hidden Ancient Ones were cunning and full of tricks. Lotus Sun's lack of skill and experience would put her at a disadvantage, and combat strength couldn't make up for experience. As for Yu Yueqing, there was no need to say much. Although Wang Ling had given her a lot of enchanted birthday presents when she was young, it still wouldn't be enough to deal with the Ancient Ones. Thus, after staring blankly at the wall for a moment, Wang Ling shook his head and walked out of the apartment with his hands in the pockets of his school uniform, as if nothing had happened. He deliberately didn't tell them what he had seen, and kept it all to himself without saying a word. As for Lotus Sun and Yu Yueqing, they looked at each other before following Wang Ling out. Out of their understanding of Wang Ling, they each had their own plans. It was getting late, so the three of them decided to go home. Before leaving, Yu Yueqing added Wang Ling on WeChat, and then added Lotus Sun as well. Lotus Sun didn't refuse. She actually wanted to know more about Yu Yueqing, so she generously took out her phone and scanned the QR code. After obtaining their contact information, Yu Yueqing smiled brightly. I feel that Lotus Sun and I are actually very compatible. I can read your fortune for free later, and you can ask me anything you want. Lotus Sun replied with a natural and unrestrained smile. All right, then I won't stand on ceremony. Thank you, Taoist Yu. Just call me Little Qing. No need to be so formal. If there's anything else you need my help with, just contact me on WeChat. Yu Yueqing narrowed her eyes slightly, then flicked her horsetail whisk and rode away on her ivory little white dragon. Wang Ling, did you see something? After watching Yu Yueqing leave, Lotus Sun couldn't help asking Wang Ling if he had seen anything in the room just now. She had asked this question after understanding Wang Ling. Although Wang Ling had expressionlessly said that there was nothing out of the ordinary in the apartment earlier, she could more or less sense that something wasn't right. Moreover, she believed that Yu Yueqing felt the same way. It was just that Yu Yueqing retreated in order to advance. Lotus Sun felt that she was increasingly unable to see through Yu Yueqing. But after asking this question, Wang Ling stared fixedly at her for a while, and finally shook his head. He waved goodbye to Lotus Sun, indicating that she should go back early. After waiting in the dark for a while to confirm that Lotus Sun had left the apartment, he reappeared at a hidden corner of the street, and returned to the room he had just been in to face that strange white wall again. He activated his king's eye and dispersed the pure white mist on the white wall, revealing the mystical runes hidden behind it. After doing all this, he sat cross-legged on the ground, and used his eye power to summon the 3 primordial ones who had been sealed in the eye universe. They were the skeleton prince of the undead, the lion man of the primordial lion clan, and Meng Liuli, the princess of the dream clan. Wang Ling had wanted to ask Monk Golden Lamp, Li Xian and Zhang Zipei to come as well, but that would have alerted the enemy. The 3 of them were now important elders of Battle Sect, and almost everyone in the sect would know that they were out on business. It would be bad if word got out. So Wang Ling summoned the 3 primordial ones who had been in the King's Eye earlier, intending to listen to their opinions. Ever since Wang Ling had beaten them into submission in Glio City, the 3 primordial ones had completely lost their temper. Furthermore, they knew that the holy race had successfully compromised with Wang Ling, and had transferred all their contracts to him. What was even more unbelievable was that Wang Ling didn't care about the restrictions of these contracts at all. After obtaining them, he had burned them to ashes with the eternal fire of the King's Eye. This meant that he wasn't worried at all that they would run away. On the other hand, he was fully confident in his own strength. Now the Skeleton Prince, the Lion Man and Meng Liuli were looking forward to Wang Ling fulfilling his promise of Utopia of the Primordial Ones. Without any contract binding them, they finally found freedom, and the feeling of being respected. As for Wang Ling, who had already become their new boss, they were willing to stay by his side even if they didn't sign any labor contracts. Until Wang Ling had summoned them, the somewhat cultured Skeleton Prince had still been drafting an essay entitled, Wang Ling My Superman. But now, when they saw the cryptic runes on the white wall in front of them, they looked at each other in dismay, and their expressions turned extremely solemn. I remember seeing these mysterious runes in a battle with a certain clan. The Skeleton Prince immediately frowned as he recalled something from a long time ago, but it had been so long ago that it had to be traced back to when he was very young. The undead had an infinitely long lifespan to begin with. To be able to trace it back to when he was young was even more terrifying. Because when he was young, the rulers of the old days had still existed, but they were already at the end of the old days, and were far from as glorious as they had been in their heyday. There are a few suspicious eternal level forces who are good at using this mysterious rune to write formulas and create arrays and secret techniques, the Lion Man replied, scratching his head. It's been a long time, but I should be able to confirm it with some time. At that moment, Meng Liuli continued, I just need to search through the dreams. This is a unique ability of the Dream Clan. They have a record of all the dreams they have invaded before, and can compile it into a huge dream network that can be shared in the spiritual space. As long as I confirm the approximate time frame, I'll be able to do a precise search, and I'll have results soon. Saying this, she sat down cross-legged and started to work without another word. Wang Ling was very satisfied with her efficiency. Elsewhere, when Lotus Sun arrived home, the head maid surnamed Chiu immediately came to greet her. Miss, you're finally back. You have a friend waiting for you in the living room. Friend? Lotus Sun stared blankly for a moment, then followed the head maid with a doubtful expression. When she reached the living room, a familiar snow-white figure appeared in front of her. It was none other than Yu Yueqing. We meet again, classmate Lotus Sunday. Yu Yueqing didn't stand on ceremony, and immediately stood up from the sofa to look at her with a smile, as if she were the host and guest. Lotus Sun took a deep breath. She had never expected Yu Yueqing to retreat at the entrance of the apartment in order to advance, and actually retreat directly to her house. What kind of show was this? It's already very late. Is something the matter, Daoist Yu? Lotus Sun asked, trying hard to maintain her composure. I just have a few questions that I'm a little curious about. Yu Yueqing rubbed her chin and carefully looked Lotus Sun up and down. She then slowly walked over, and as she got closer, she couldn't help smiling as she looked at Lotus Sunday. I actually want to ask, do you like Wang Ling? Chapter 1844. Lotus Sun was completely taken aback by Yu Yueqing's straightforwardness, and her flushed face clearly showed her utter astonishment. She had never expected Yu Yueqing to come directly to her house at night, and even ask her such a blunt question. So, was this a provocation? Lotus Sun shook her head inwardly, but didn't think so. When Yu Yueqing had said this, she hadn't sensed the slightest bit of murderous intent. On the contrary, she had felt a sense of déjà vu, as if she had been teased. Lotus Sun was all too familiar with this feeling. It was just like how Audiobook liked to tease her and call her mistress. Now that the question had been thrown at her, Lotus Sun felt that if she didn't give an answer, it would be too petty of her, and it would seem that she cared a lot. It was just Wang Ling, a mere blockhead. What was there about him that she cared so much about? After doing her best to restrain her emotions, Lotus Sun took a deep breath, looked at Yu Yueqing, and summoned up her courage to reply. Taoist Yu is right, you're absolutely right. I like Wang Ling. Sure enough, I've calculated it correctly again. Also, let me tell you a little secret. Yu Yueqing narrowed her eyes and smiled, then grabbed Lotus Sun's hand. I like him too. Lotus Sun. Yu Yueqing smiled. What's so strange about that? It's normal for cute boys to be liked by a lot of people. In any case, we haven't officially established a relationship, right? So it can only be considered a fair competition now. Lotus Sun's heart hurt a little when she heard this. She smacked her lips and felt a bitter taste in her mouth, but she couldn't find any reason to refute it. There was no such thing as first come, first served when liking someone, and no one said that Wang Ling had to be hers. It could only be said that Yu Yueqing was a very difficult opponent, and this was the first time Lotus Sun had felt this way. This Taoist priest was far from being as naive as Jiang Yingying, who would be easily dismissed. Lotus Sun felt that she was in for a tough fight. Did Taoist priest come to see me tonight just to ask this? If there's anything else, do you want to sit down and talk? Contrary to Yu Yueqing's expectations, Lotus Sun was much more composed than she had expected. Not only did she not have any intention of driving her away, she even took the initiative to let her stay. Then Lotus Sun clapped her hands and had the head-maid serve tea and snacks. A sweet smell immediately wafted out, and the light purple tea sparkled with starlight, as if the Milky Way was reflected on the surface of the lake at night. Yu Yueqing took a sip and smacked her lips. She didn't wait for Lotus Sun's introduction before exclaiming in pleasant surprise, "It's made of top-grade moonlight grass, right?" Lotus Sun was astonished. She hadn't expected Yu Yueqing to be so knowledgeable about the tea ceremony, and to be able to identify the type with just one sip. The spirit tea brewed from top-grade moonlight grass had the effect of calming the mind and nourishing the mind. It was extremely suitable for consumption at night, and it also had the ability to improve one's memory. While drinking tea, one would be able to memorize the knowledge in one's mind. This effect could last for several months. It was exam season soon, and Lotus Sun always prepared more at home. But moonlight grass was expensive, and because of the harsh conditions under which it grew, there was a limited amount of it that could be farmed. This top-grade moonlight grass, on the other hand, grew in the natural environment, and there were strict harvesting standards every year, so it was even rarer. 1 gram of tea grass could be sold for immortal gold. Leisurely sipping her tea, Yu Yueqing was in a very good mood. Looking at Lotus Sun's seemingly unruffled face, she found it a little funny. After a few minutes, Yu Yueqing got down to business. It seems that classmate Lotus Sun still doesn't treat me as a friend. I clearly told you to call me Little Qing, but you still call me Taoist Yu. Lotus Sun. No, Little Qing, you're thinking too much. You don't have to force yourself to call me that. I understand very well that we're competitors, after all, and there's nothing wrong with being respectful. Yu Yueqing put down the teacup in her hand and said elegantly and naturally, "Then I want to hear what you think of Wang Ling. For example, what can you detect from him when he's in the apartment?" These words put Lotus Sun on guard. Yu Yueqing didn't know Wang Ling's true strength, but she was asking this question. Did she already sense something from him? She was very puzzled. After a moment of silence, Lotus Sun said, "There's clearly something wrong with that apartment, but Wang Ling says there's nothing wrong with it." Yes. Yu Yueqing nodded heavily and said, "It's clear that he doesn't want us to take part in the investigation, and he's already found some clues about the apartment. But Wang Ling's strength is the same as ours, so why is he so confident to take part in the investigation alone?" Lotus Sun's throat involuntarily rolled at this question. And for the first time, she sensed a sharp aura emanating from Yu Yueqing. She even suspected that it was very likely that Yu Yueqing knew something. Lotus Sun was hesitating about how to tell Yu Yueqing this. Unexpectedly, Yu Yueqing smiled slightly at that moment. "I know what you want to say, classmate Lotus Sunday. Or perhaps you've already sensed it, right?" "Sense what?" "That is, Wang Ling isn't an ordinary person." After Yu Yueqing said this, Lotus Sun's eyebrows instantly furrowed slightly. Yu Yueqing immediately noticed this subtle change in expression. And after seeing Lotus Sun's expression, she was even more certain of her guess. "Sure enough, you've also sensed it. Wang Ling has always been low-key and has hidden himself very well. But if you get closer to him, sooner or later you'll also notice that there's something unusual about him." "I don't know what Taoist you is talking about." Lotus Sun was stupefied by Yu Yueqing's words. "Don't worry, classmate Lotus Sunday. I didn't intend to tell anyone about Wang Ling. And seeing you like this, I'm a lot more at ease. You've probably been helping him hide it all along, right? Even covering for him?" Yu Yueqing laughed. "I'm not stupid. The birthday presents Wang Ling gave me all had strange abilities. From this alone, I can tell that he's not an ordinary person. You're probably like me, right? Did you observe the situation from the details?" That's right," Lotus Sun said awkwardly. Her emotions were intertwined and extremely complicated. She had never thought that Yu Yueqing would actually be able to sense Wang Ling's hidden strength from the details. And she was completely different from Yu Yueqing. At this thought, Lotus Sun's face couldn't help turning slightly red. Because of Wang Ling's secret. In some sense, it was Wang Ling himself who had told her. Chapter 1845. In the face of Yu Yueqing's menacing aura. This was the first time Lotus Sun had the misconception that she wouldn't be able to hold her own. She had never thought that someone would actually be able to guess that Wang Ling was out of the ordinary based on her intuition alone. This woman was very dangerous, more dangerous than any of the people Lotus Sun had dealt with before. She looked simple, but was far less so than Jiang Yingying, and even more shrewd than Ryoko Kwamiya. Furthermore, she gave off a foggy feeling that no matter how hard you concentrated, you couldn't see through her. While Lotus Sun was in a daze, Yu Yueqing put on a calm and unhurried expression again and said, "So now, this is the secret that classmate Lotus Sun and I share. I don't want to cause trouble for Wang Ling, so I've kept it a secret." She didn't ask Lotus Sun how she had sensed Wang Ling's true strength, and instead chose to skip this part. The main thing was that Yu Yueqing felt that she and Lotus Sun hadn't known each other for very long, and it was already a little rude to drop by without any notice tonight. Thus, she didn't want to appear nosy and ask endless questions like a curious baby. Furthermore, even if she did ask, she felt that Lotus Sun wouldn't answer her so honestly, and would most likely find an excuse that didn't fit the facts. After all, she and Lotus Sun weren't that familiar yet. Furthermore, it was very clear that Lotus Sun was wary of her. So given the current situation, it wasn't time for her to be completely honest. For Yu Yueqing, helping to investigate that video blogger Li Xian wasn't the key. The key was to use this opportunity to get closer to Wang Ling and Lotus Sunday. When that time came, it would be time for her to speak up. "What do you think about that video blogger?" Yu Yueqing asked again at that moment. "It's clear that Wang Ling doesn't want us to get involved. This means that there might be something very dangerous behind this," Lotus Sun said. "If we force our way in, I'm afraid we'll cause trouble for Wang Ling. So, it's better not to do anything." "That's true." Yu Yueqing nodded and said, "But I think we can still do some logistics work, right? For example, I recently discovered a mysterious organization that seems to have something to do with Wang Ling. I think it'll be very dangerous in the long run. It's not good for Wang Ling to hide his strength. What organization? I think it's called Grey Sect? In that video blogger Li Xian's apartment, the meeting between Wang Ling and the 3 eternal emperors was still going on. Meng Liuli's eyes glowed with the color of an aurora. She was trying her best to read through the records of the dream invasion. Found it. About 10 minutes later, she took out a wordless jade tube from her sleeve and projected everything she saw in the spiritual space onto the jade tube. Which race's language is it? The skeleton prince asked. Currently, I'm not sure which clan it belongs to, but the mysterious text that I'm projecting into the jade tube is from the library of the East Great Emperor's palace, Meng Liuli said. Eastern Great Emperor? Wang Ling raised his eyebrows. He had never heard of this name before, but he felt that this person was not simple. The Lion Man then explained. In ancient times, all the races were at loggerheads with one another. In order to survive, some of the weaker clans would form alliances. At their peak, they were divided into 4 camps, and the East Great Emperor was one of them. Then what about Dao Ancestor Wang? At that moment, Wang Ying's voice came from Wang Ling's body. Dao Ancestor Wang appears and disappears unpredictably, and has no interest in participating in the disputes of these ancient clans. He has no interest in leading the ancient ones, and only appears to mediate when there are irreconcilable conflicts between the clans. The Skeleton Prince said, "This is the Dao Ancestor's view of the big picture. Even those self-proclaimed great emperors can't compare. Of course, to be able to become great emperors back then, there's no need to doubt their strength. We once relied on these 4 great emperors and wanted to run for the throne, but it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. So now it seems that this mysterious text was most likely written by one of the 4 great emperors?" Wang Ying asked in place of Wang Ling. "Not necessarily." Meng Liuli shook her head and said, "Members of my clan once invaded the dream of the pavilion master of the East Great Emperor's imperial palace, and it was through his dream that we found this mysterious text. The information in the imperial palace's sutra depository is very complicated, so the mysterious text might not have been written by the East Great Emperor. However, it's very clear that the East Great Emperor has already deciphered the text and used it to write a diary." Write a diary? At the scene, Wang Ling, Wang Ying, the Skeleton Prince and the Lion Man all looked puzzled at the same time. The first half of the jade tube is a record of all kinds of mysterious text in the sutra depository, while the second half was written by the East Great Emperor. The timeline of the contents is later than the first half, so I suspect that the East Great Emperor wrote it after deciphering the mysterious text, Meng Liuli said. An emperor writing a diary in the mysterious text that he had just learned. What kind of operation was this? So the emperor also writes a diary? The Lion Man couldn't help teasing at this thought. That's right, which decent person would write a diary? The Skeleton Prince also nodded. Speaking up to this point, the Skeleton Prince paused and asked, "Lion, do you write a diary?" The Lion Man, "I don't. What about you, Skeleton?" The Skeleton Prince, "Who would write the truth in a diary? Can what is written in a diary be the truth?" The 2 of them burst into laughter at this point and shouted "despicable" in unison. But Wang Ling now had a completely different view of the East Great Emperor, writing a diary in the mysterious text. This clever East Great Emperor had deciphered the mysterious text, and even used it to write a diary, so he had to be very confident in the secrecy of the text, to the extent that he didn't believe that anyone could decipher it. Therefore, using the reverse logic to consider, the things that the Great East Emperor wrote in his diary might really be true words. It might even involve a series of ancient secrets. Wang Ling had thought that Meng Liuli would be able to quickly find out who on earth was using this mysterious text in the myriad ancient tribe. In the end, Meng Liuli had unexpectedly directly found this East Great Emperor's diary. So now, it seemed that there was only one way for Wang Ling to crack it. That was to use his power of sight to forcibly decipher the mysterious text, and then translate it into a language that was closest to modern writing. But these mysterious texts were extremely obscure, and Wang Ling was worried that in the process of deciphering it, his eye might suffer unprecedented pressure. If his king's eye was damaged, that would be bad. So as a precaution, Wang Ling had already thought of a way to prevent this from happening. Thinking this, he pressed his palm against the ground and immediately summoned a glass display case. And what was sealed inside were all kinds of pupils. At this point, the skeleton prince Meng Liuli, the lion man and Wang Ying were all stupefied. Wang Ling took off his king's eye with practiced ease and stored it in the glass case like he was replacing contact lenses. Then he took out a new pair of pupils and put them back in his eye sockets. Chapter 1846. There were a total of 49 pairs of eyes in the display case, which were the variables of Tao. Each eye was born of Tao and had completely different abilities, and could be perfectly used in different situations. In the end, Wang Ling was still cautious. He didn't want the king's eye to be damaged while deciphering the mysterious text, so he had decided to change the eyes before deciphering them. All the eyes in the display case had their own serial numbers, and the king's eye was number 49. And now he had directly chosen eye 01. Tao 01 eye. Deceitful peeping magic eye. Its appearance is orange and green, and its pupils are in the shape of stars. It has the ability to distinguish all deceitful people and deceitful objects. It can also use the power of deceit for its own use to deceive a certain target. Wang Ling knew all the descriptions of the king's eyes. The reason why he had chosen eye 01 was entirely because it was a very powerful illusion spell, and was very deceptive. Who knew he might be able to directly decipher the mysterious text when it wasn't paying attention? After installing it, Wang Ling didn't think too much about it, and directly stared at the mysterious text on the jade tube. After staring at it for 5 or 6 minutes, he abruptly closed the jade tube. Then, with a bang, the orange-green liquid of the eye splattered everywhere. And eye 01 actually exploded on the spot like a cow's eye on a barbecue stand. This, the skeleton prince, the lion man and Meng Liuli looked horrified at the same time. They had never expected to see such a frightening scene. But it seemed that Wang Ling had already predicted this situation, and was exceptionally calm. He used the primer spell to gather up the exploded liquid of the eye, then took off eye 01, and put it back in the display case. The king's eye display case had the effect of repairing the eyes, but the damage to eye 01 was too severe, and it would probably take several years for it to return to its peak condition. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. Sure enough, he had been right to be cautious. If he directly used the king's eye and it got damaged, it would mean that his combat strength would be reduced in some sense, and would instead give evildoers an opportunity to deal with him. The king's eye was eye 49. Although it could be repaired in the king's eye display case after it was damaged, who knew how long it would take for it to recover? The later the number of eyes, the longer it would take to repair them. In fact, Wang Ling's choice of eyes to decipher the diary of East's great emperor was also a test of his own strength. He could see that there was something strange about the diary of the Eastern great emperor. Since this was an emperor-level character that had once led an ancient race, his strength was definitely not ordinary. Moreover, his strength was several levels higher than these ancient imperial races' ancient race. The fact that the other party was familiar with the mysterious language, and had even written a diary in the mysterious language, showed that he was extremely confident in his own strength. This meant that he wasn't afraid that others would see the diary, and even if they did, they wouldn't be able to decipher it. In the worst-case scenario, even if it was really deciphered, it was normal for a great emperor to set some magic traps inside. For example, when Wang Ling had just used Tao 01 to test the waters, he had suffered a backlash from the magic trap. Generally speaking, this could only mean that the eye he was using didn't have the ability to directly decipher the diary and resist the magic traps hidden in it. Thus, the second time around, Wang Ling directly chose Tao 016 to directly upgrade the level of the eye. Tao 016 eye. Resplendent dark forest holy eye. It is black and white on the outside and pure white in the center. It has the ability to probe and attack an unknown civilization. When an unknown civilization tries to damage the holy eye will display its greatest power and counterattack. After silently reciting the details of Tao 016 eye, Wang Ling thought that after the king's eye, this should be the eye most suitable for deciphering the mysterious language. After all, to the vast majority of cultivators, the mysterious language belonged to an unknown civilization. Now that East's great emperor had written the mysterious language and set up a trap inside, as long as the holy eye was damaged, the defense mechanism would be directly triggered, and the mysterious language would be instantly swallowed up, and its hidden meaning would be analyzed. Following the previous steps, Wang Ling continued to stare at the jade tube. This time, the mysterious language in the diary of East's great emperor didn't harm Dao 016I. Furthermore, Wang Ling could clearly sense that the mysterious characters on the jade tubes floated out of them like feathers. Then it drifted all over the sky. Looks like it worked. Meng Liuli was pleasantly surprised and curious. She was also very interested in the contents of the diary of East's great emperor, and wondered what was written inside. But at that moment, it was as if Wang Ling was completely immersed in the world of the diary of East's great emperor, and didn't respond to the calls of the outside world. The crimson crescent moon hung high in the sky, shining on the silent city in the alien land. Iron fortresses built from black iron rose from the ground one after another, like small mountains. Wang Ling had never expected that after Dao 016I analyzed the mysterious language in the diary of East's great emperor, it would actually be able to bring about such an immersive experience. That was right. At that moment, Wang Ling had transformed into the appearance of East's great emperor from ancient times, and had begun to play the role of East's great emperor in this diary. At the same time, this was also Wang Ling's first time seeing the style of the ancient cultivation world. He had thought that the ancient cultivation world should have been the most unsophisticated civilization, full of all kinds of prehistoric beasts, undeveloped areas, terrifying secret lands, and primitive tribes where hundreds of schools of thought contended. It was only at that moment that Wang Ling realized that the ancient cultivators had already built buildings that resembled modern civilization on this alien land. This was a world where ancient and modern intertwined, with traces of modern architecture, while retaining the grandeur of ancient architecture. So, from ancient times to the present, it wasn't an evolution, but a continuation? Or was it a reincarnation? Wang Ling was lost in thought. East's great emperor's imperial palace still retained its majestic imperial style. Wang Ling stood at the top of the city, the flames of the beacons behind him making half his face look red in the dark of the night. His dark golden robes were embroidered with the image of a vermilion bird, and his wide and long sleeves billowed in the strong wind. His sword-like eyebrows were raised, and East's great emperor stood on the great wall with his hands behind his back, exuding the aura of a king that could intimidate the world. His pupils were deep, but different from the black jade of the past. At that moment, East's great emperor's pupils had already transformed into the appearance of Dao 016I, which indicated that Wang Ling was using an eye technique to temporarily experience the life recorded by East's great emperor in this diary. Emperor. At that moment, a young man with skin as fair as jade and long flowing hair flew over on a sword from afar, and landed directly next to Wang Ling. All the character information and the following script instantly appeared in Wang Ling's mind. This young man was East's great emperor's imperial palace's white-robed chief steward and military commander, Yi Run. Wang Ling didn't need to speak at all, and his body automatically responded to Yi Run according to the script in the diary. What's the matter? West's great emperor's envoy is here. Emperor, do you want to meet him? He said that if you want a truce, you must agree to all their demands. Yi Run said at that moment, bowing with his hands folded in front. Chapter 1847. Lotus Sun and Yu Yueqing discussed how to better cover for Wang Ling for over an hour. Friendship between girls was sometimes wonderful. With a common goal in mind, the two of them felt that they were much closer to each other. Lotus Sun also felt that Yu Yueqing wasn't as dangerous as before, but she still hadn't completely let down her guard. Later on, Yu Yueqing even started to use the camera to play a video of the two of them celebrating their birthdays together, which made Lotus Sun extremely envious. It wasn't like she hadn't seen Wang Ling as a child at home before, but little Wang Ling could move in the video. This made Lotus Sun wild with joy. Little Wang Ling was really too cute. When little Yu Yueqing had held his arm, his unsmiling little face had been full of helplessness. Just by looking at his expression, Lotus Sun could imagine what he had been thinking at the time. It could only be said that little Wang Ling was too easy to understand. Even if he didn't have any expression on his face, how could a child have any bad intentions? As Yu Yueqing played the video, she switched skillfully. This display wasn't to show off, but purely to share. Seeing Lotus Sun's unblinking gaze, she immediately said, "Do you want me to make a copy for you later? You can use the AI to change your face. You can just change my face to yours when you were a child." Is that okay? Lotus Sun was pleasantly surprised. At the same time, she hadn't expected Yu Yueqing to actually say that. Why not? In any case, it's all in the past. It's a fair competition now. Yu Yueqing smiled generously and meaningfully. That's right, I remember there was a video of Wang Ling almost destroying the earth. Destroy the earth. Yes, he almost fell when he was a child. Luckily, Uncle and Auntie reacted quickly and pulled him up right away. Let me look for this video. I remember it's in my camera. Yu Yueqing frowned slightly and started to look for the relevant video. She fiddled with the button, but the video suddenly switched to the footage from when they had just entered Li Xian's apartment. Wait. At that moment, Lotus Sun suddenly reached out and pressed the pause button. Is there a problem? Look, that white wall. I think there are words on it, said Lotus Sunday. Did I? Yu Yueqing frowned and stared at the camera for a long time. Sure enough, she vaguely found that on the white wall that was captured by the camera, there were a few characters that were faintly emitting white light. However, because these characters were the same color as the wall, they were not very obvious and were very dim. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see them. What is this? Lotus Sun was puzzled. The thing Wang Ling hid from us earlier was these characters, right? He felt that these runes might be dangerous. That should be the case. Yu Yueqing nodded and said, but I feel like these characters are familiar, as if I've seen them somewhere before. You've seen it before? Lotus Sun was even more puzzled. I remember that the Manor Lord once wrote something similar, but I'm not sure if it's the same type. Yu Yueqing said. This was a new clue. Lotus Sun and Yu Yueqing had originally decided not to get involved in this matter, but this accidental discovery suddenly evoked a strong desire to investigate. What surprised Lotus Sun even more was that the mysterious characters on the white wall actually had something to do with the Manor Lord of Wind Thunder Manor. That was to say, this old Manor Lord might actually be one of the people involved in the sudden disappearance of this vlogger Li Xian. This accidental discovery made Lotus Sun and Yu Yueqing feel the complexity of the matter, as if a pair of invisible hands were pushing the whole thing forward. We have to ask the Manor Lord. Yu Yueqing immediately made the decision. That's not stable, Lotus Sun said. We still have to be more conservative. It's too risky with just the two of us. How about this? I know a few seniors. If we call them along, we'll be safe. Seniors? Yu Yueqing had a suspicious expression on her face. Then Lotus Sun immediately took out her phone and sent a private message to each of the core management members of Battle Sect. Ajua Monk Golden Lamp, Li Xian, Zhang Zipei, Qin Zong Xiang Yi Gu Xuanji Wang Zhen Lu Qingyi. These 9 people. In a short instant, Lotus Sun notified them all. Elsewhere, Wang Ling was still experiencing the events of the past in East Great Emperor's diary. His body's movements and conversations were automatic. Although he was already in his body and could control it, he didn't act rashly. If the events recorded in the diary were true, that meant that the diary itself represented a true event from the past. Wang Ling felt that if he did anything unusual, or went against the normal behavior recorded in the diary, he could change history. Led by this white-robed chief steward Yi Ren, Wang Ling finally saw the envoy sent by West Great Emperor in the main hall of East Great Emperor's imperial palace. The envoy was dressed in a pitch-black robe, and had a long white beard that cascaded down to his toes like a waterfall. Even in the face of East Great Emperor, this envoy didn't show any fear, and didn't care about East Great Emperor's imperial majesty at all. In such an environment, he stretched his hand out from the black robe, and revealed a silver dagger. There was a mark of the 9-headed devil snake on it, which was the symbol of the West deity. It symbolized that he had come on behalf of the West deity. There was no doubt that this was an extremely rude provocation. Yi Ren was about to flare up, but the envoy of East Great Emperor stopped him with a meaningful look. But even East Great Emperor had obviously never seen such an arrogant envoy before. Then he still sat on the wide golden vermilion bird throne in the posture of an emperor, and accepted the worship of this envoy of West Great Emperor. External envoy Yan Sanyang greets East Great Emperor. May East Great Emperor's great fortune fill the heavens. The voice wasn't too loud, but it echoed in the empty palace. Except for white-robed Chief Steward Yi Run and a few old officials, the palace, which had originally been home to more than 100 officials, seemed incomparably empty under the echo of this shout. Based on the current development of the plot, Wang Ling could roughly guess that there had been a coup in East Great Emperor's imperial palace not long ago. Most of the officials in East Great Emperor's camp had switched sides, and now only these few people in the main hall were left to negotiate. Wang Ling hid in this East Great Emperor's body, and patiently waited for the next development of the plot. Then he heard what this envoy of West Great Emperor Yan Sanyang said. Yan Sanyang. In addition to reparations and the division of the Star Territory, I, West Master, have an additional request. If East Great Emperor agrees, we will release all the prisoners of war and immediately withdraw from the Star Territory. Hearing this, East Great Emperor was silent for a moment before he spoke in a deep and dignified voice. Let's hear it. I heard that East Great Emperor found a lost Outer God palace on Carefree Star. It is said that there is a fragment of a top Outer God's heart inside. Yan Sanyang said, I, West Great Emperor, request that East Great Emperor hand over what he found in this Outer God palace. These words immediately caught Wang Ling's attention. A fragment of a top Outer God's heart? That mysterious thing that was later called Mandate of Heaven? The thing that Tao ancestor Wang had tried to seal after discovering it back then. Chapter 1848. Although Yan Sanyang's words seemed respectful, they were actually full of contempt. He didn't take this East Great Emperor seriously at all. He was very confident and had obviously come prepared. This was because he was not the only one who was sent to the East region. At this moment, the diplomatic group formed by the command of the West Emperor was waiting outside the East Emperor's palace in an orderly manner. Dozens of elders were the elites of the elites. Every single one of them had limitless potential, and they were all top-notch geniuses among the ancient ones. If they could obtain enough resources, they would definitely become almighty existences in the future, and they might even be able to form their own clans and compete for the position of Great Emperor. Such a terrible sense of oppression was like dark clouds covering the sun, wrapping the periphery of the East Great Emperor's imperial palace tightly, as if it would pour in at any moment. Wang Ling had already sensed this danger when he had been on the walls of the imperial palace earlier. He had been watching the show, and didn't know how this East Great Emperor would deal with it, let alone whether he had already sensed the danger outside. This was a group of terrible ancient ones, and each of them had the power to destroy a clan at will. They had already become a symbol of the divide in strength between the East and the West territories. In the East Great Emperor's palace, sitting on the supreme vermilion bird throne, he still didn't move, as if he had already expected this scene. His eyes were steady and confident as he glanced at Yan Sanyang, the envoy from the West. The vermilion bird's fire lingered around him, and his eyes burned, giving off a strong sense of deterrence. But Yan Sanyang knew that there was a lot of backup behind him. Even though he was frightened by the stare, he still braced himself. I hope East Great Emperor clearly understands how important this truce is to the East Territory. With this agreement, our two territories will be on good terms for at least 100 years and won't disturb each other. It will also give the East Territory some time to rest. If the East Great Deity is unwilling to accept my West Deity's favor, then you'd better be fully prepared for the consequences that will follow. He put his hands behind his back and spoke with a domineering face. In the end, he lost all his patience in the palace hall, and revealed a ferocious look. Yan Sanyang, are you threatening my king? White-robed General Manager Yi Ren berated. He couldn't hold himself back either. The natural laws on his body surged and spiritual light surged. He had a strong urge to kill Yan Sanyang and then be satisfied. At this moment, the atmosphere in the Varch Palace suddenly turned cold. The two sides who were confronting each other were at daggers drawn, and it seemed like a fight would break out at any moment. However, at this moment, the Great East Emperor suddenly laughed. Yi Run, don't be impatient. Immediately after, he stood up from the supreme throne and looked down at Yin Sanyang with a disdainful gaze. West deity, are you that interested in the outer deity palace that I discovered? Of course. Yin Sanyang snorted and said. If I say that I found a mysterious item in this outer deity palace that can directly destroy a region, would the western region still dare to touch me? The East Emperor narrowed his eyes and a ruthless look flashed across his face. His expression made Yin Sanyang sweat profusely, because this was what the Great West Emperor was most worried about. The outer deity palace was formed by the outer deity, a top expert among the rulers of the old days. It condensed all the power of the outer deity. Although it was called the tomb of the outer deity, it was actually the essence of the outer deity's soul. If it could be successfully explored, it would definitely be able to obtain unimaginable benefits. However, apart from the few emperors and Dao ancestor Wang, there was probably no one else who dared to break into the outer deity palace. The Great West Emperor was obsessed with this outer deity palace and wanted to take it down. The most important reason was that he was worried that the Great East Emperor would enter the outer deity palace alone and obtain something that he couldn't deal with. Those outer deities were powerful. Even if they were dead, the power of the items in the palace was still amazing. Therefore, the destruction of a region that the Great East Emperor said was not a joke. The most likely outcome was mutual destruction. In just a few words, Yin Sanyang was choked and speechless. But soon, he tried hard to regain his composure. Since the start of the war between the eastern and western regions, the Great East Emperor had been personally commanding the frontline battles. According to reason, there should be no opportunity to enter the outer deity palace to explore the secrets. Even if he did enter, the interior of the outer deity palace was too dangerous. Even if an emperor-level character entered without sufficient preparation, he would most likely die. He wouldn't be able to come out in a short period of time. In such a short period of time, this was an impossible task. In addition, the Great East Emperor looked unscathed. This made Yin Sanyang even more convinced that the Great East Emperor was deceiving him. Great East Emperor, if you have this ability, you should have used it earlier. In the main hall, after Yin Sanyang understood everything, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. In front of the supreme vermilion bird throne, the Great East Emperor saw this scene, and his eyes became colder. His aura suddenly rose and directly oppressed Yin Sanyang. You are just a foreign envoy. You are not qualified to be so arrogant with me. The sound wave was transmitted, like the cry of the vermilion bird and the phoenix, with an extremely ear-piercing sound that shook the entire main hall. All the people on the Great East Emperor's side looked calm, but this phoenix cry instantly shocked Yin Sanyang to the point where he bled from his 7 orifices. That kind of ear-piercing memory constantly rippled in his mind, making his brain tumble. He knelt on the main hall on the spot. Boom. The Great East Emperor's body didn't move. He just raised a hand and pressed forward. A vermilion bird shadow whizzed out from his sleeve, shocking everyone in the main hall. Under the deafening cry of the vermilion bird, all the people outside the Great East Emperor's imperial palace were alarmed. They instantly knew that the negotiation had collapsed. Russian. Save Envoy Yen. The West Emperor has ordered that whoever takes the head of the Great East Emperor can become the new emperor. The envoys entrenched outside had already seen this scene. Every one of them seemed to have expected this scene, and had made preparations. Once the negotiation collapsed, they would rush into the main hall together. However, the strength of the Great Emperor was incomparably amazing. When they approached the main hall, the envoy sent by the Great West Emperor, Yin Sanyang, had already died tragically. His face was scorched black, and he was directly roasted into a charred corpse by the vermilion bird's fire. His body was in a strange shape, and he died in extreme pain. Everything happened too fast, and they couldn't protect Yin Sanyang at all. At this time, looking at the dozens of Western region envoys suddenly breaking into the Great East Emperor's imperial palace, the Great East Emperor remained motionless. He looked down at the crowd of heroes, and fixed his eyes on the crowd with the symbol of the 9-headed snake in front of him. The white-robed general manager, Yi Run, looked at these people and instantly felt that the situation was not good. These people, were carefully selected experts of the Western region, and each of them had the bloodline of the royal family. They were strong competitors for the great emperor in the future. In fact, even Yi Ren wouldn't have thought that the great East Emperor, who had always been calm, would actually kill Yan Sanyang so bluntly. Although Yan Sanyang had provoked him first, the death of this foreign envoy meant that the negotiation had collapsed. At the same time, it also provided this group of elders from the Western region with an excuse to launch a new round of war. At this time, several old officials, led by Yi Ren, were solemnly waiting in the Great East Emperor's imperial palace. Even though this was an irreversible situation, everyone's faces showed that they were unafraid of death. Wang Ling was slightly moved by this scene. He had never witnessed a battle between ancient beings with his own eyes, and had never expected to see it so clearly today. It was like watching an epic battle between royal families. All the contentions in front of him were a game of power between ancient cultivators from ancient times. Chapter 1849. Wang Ling had never seen what a real emperor looked like. The East's great emperor's domineering, dignified, and unyielding attitude in the face of the invading enemy was almost exactly what Wang Ling had in mind. He was high and lofty, and even when facing a group of ancient beings with royal bloodlines, he wasn't afraid at all. The vermilion bird flame in his eyes flickered, and a powerful primal chaos energy circulated around his body along with a mysterious force. This was the Emperor's primordial qi, which was actually the same type of substance as the primordial qi in Wang Ling's body, and usually only emperors had it. It was just that most primordial qi, including the emperor's, had already taken shape and had an upper limit. Wang Ling's primordial qi was heaven-defying, and had no upper limit at all. Wang Ling had never sensed this kind of power from any of the ancient beings, including the Skeleton Prince, the Lion Man, and Meng Liuli. Even Monk Golden Lamp and Tao Ancestor Wang's direct disciple Peng Shiren didn't have this kind of power. It could only be said that great emperors were truly extraordinary and out of the ordinary. Who dares to act rashly? At this time, the great East Emperor muttered to himself. His whole body was shrouded by the vermilion bird's flames. This was an unintentional and automatic defensive ability. Any flying objects near the great East Emperor, including long-range spells and hidden weapons, would be burned by the vermilion bird's flames the moment they got close. Then, he stared at one of the few women in the queue in front of him and muttered, "I didn't expect you to come too. Zhaoyang. You and I are of the same origin, but now you're betraying me in the midst of the enemy. How ridiculous." Everyone was stunned. The Blazing Sun Goddess. The Blazing Sun Goddess was someone the Western Great Emperor had spent a great deal of money to recruit. This was the first time anyone had heard that the Blazing Flame Saint Fairy was actually from the same source as the Eastern Great Emperor. Goddess Zhaoyang's expression was tranquil, and she didn't show the slightest bit of anger when she heard East's Great Emperor's words. She still maintained her graceful and moving posture as she took off her hood and stepped forward. Her posture made the heroes around her look dim. There was no doubt that Goddess Zhaoyang was a strong contender for the position of East's Great Emperor, and was the woman most likely to directly take his head. She and the Great East Sovereign came from the same source. Naturally, she was very clear about the weaknesses of the Great East Sovereign. Even a Great Emperor-level expert couldn't be completely invincible. They also had a fatal weakness, but most people didn't know about it. A fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. The Celestial Emperor's words smack of moral coercion. I didn't grow up in the Eastern Divine Region, and wandered around. You and I have no other connection except for some dispensable bloodline. She laughed and stared at the Great East Emperor. As a Great Emperor, you let your people of the same origin wander outside without a home to return to. Have you ever thought about how many people have looked down on me? But now you only know how to talk. Your father rebelled a long time ago. This is a serious crime. Out of benevolence, I only punished your father and exiled your clansmen. The East's Great Emperor opened his mouth, his expression dejected. It was obvious that the words of the goddess Zhaoyang had poked at his sore spot. The past was unbearable to recall. It was all in the past. Even the East Great Emperor himself didn't expect that a moment of benevolence would actually ignite the flames of revenge. We have gathered here today. With so many people of the royal bloodline gathered here, Celestial Emperor, you should know that you have no chance of winning today. When the goddess Jiaoyang heard about the past, the expression on her face didn't change at all. She still maintained a calm posture as she looked at the charred corpse of Yan Sanyang on the ground. Her eyes were biting cold. The Celestial Emperor in the West gave you one last chance, but unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. How can the majesty of an emperor be challenged? The East Great Emperor's tone was indifferent. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Since all of you have broken into my main hall today, I have no choice but to annihilate all of you. Boom. The next moment, everyone in the main hall tacitly moved at the same time. Powerful spiritual energy collided in the air, forming a high pressure that immediately shook the dome of the entire main hall. Do it. Someone shouted. The battle had already begun, so everyone had no scruples. Although some people knew that the goddess Jiaoyang had a high chance of winning, the battle for the head depended on each person's ability. If there was a chance to pick up the slack and be the first to get the head of the East Great Emperor, then they could also ascend to the throne. At the same time, because the goddess Jiaoyang was here, they had no fear when facing the East Great Emperor. She was the main attacker, and they only needed to interfere from the side. In their opinion, there were many ways to win. The East Great Emperor had ascended the throne for many years, and his emperor's aura had dried up. He had long entered his twilight years, and no one thought that the East Great Emperor could still be insufferably arrogant. Countless artifacts flew across the sky, illuminating the top of the imperial palace. All the attacks were concentrated in front, aiming at the East Great Emperor. At this moment, heaven and earth were silent. All kinds of chaotic aura intertwined, bringing with it a sense of deathly stillness. The white-robed general manager Yi Ren tried his best to protect the emperor, but he was pushed away by the goddess Jiaoyang's palm. Nine-tailed vermilion bird? Yi Ren was shocked. In that palm strike just now, he saw a nine-tailed vermilion bird rush out from the palm of the goddess Jiaoyang. His face turned pale with fright. If the East Great Emperor hadn't pushed him away from a distance with his palm force in time, he would have died if that palm strike had collided with him directly. He couldn't believe that the goddess Jiaoyang had cultivated the nine-tailed vermilion bird Dharma form. This was the highest realm of the vermilion bird technique. Even the East Great Emperor hadn't comprehended it, and now he was only at the level of an eight-tailed vermilion bird. That's not the nine-tailed vermilion bird. It's a fake nine-tailed vermilion bird. An old official of the East Great Emperor Palace was besieged by several people. He spat out blood, but he also clearly saw the scene just now. He was very sure that the nine-tailed vermilion bird was different, because the tail behind the vermilion bird was not the vermilion bird's plume, but 9 snake heads. Obviously, before coming here, the West Great Emperor had lent his power to the goddess Jiaoyang. She had originally cultivated the 6-tailed vermilion bird, and now, with the power of the West Great Emperor, it was no wonder that she dared to directly lead the people to attack the East Great Emperor Palace. At this moment, the goddess Jiaoyang didn't hesitate and once again displayed the 9-tailed vermilion bird Dharma form. With an extremely strong aura, it swept across the entire area. When the Dharma form was displayed, it shocked the world. With an extremely strong aura, many people in the air swayed and fell to the ground. This pressure was too strong. They were too close to the goddess Jiaoyang, and they couldn't even stabilize their flying figures in the air, tarnishing the vermilion bird's bloodline. How dare you? An old official of the East Great Emperor Palace half knelt on the ground. He was shaken by this power, until he bled from his 7 orifices. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. This is the power that the West Great Emperor bestowed upon me. And power is just a tool. It's fine as long as I can win. The goddess Jiaoyang's face was still as calm as an ancient well. She stared fixedly at the East Great Emperor in front of her. When the 9-tailed vermilion bird was displayed, the East Great Emperor was the most intuitive to feel the impact and crushing feeling of the power. In the blink of an eye, he felt the qi and blood in his body churn, and even the vermilion bird fire light protecting his body lost its effect. But what Wang Ling found very strange was that even in the face of this desperate situation, the East Great Emperor still showed no fear. Could it be that the East Great Emperor still had a trick up his sleeve? Hiding in the East Great Emperor's body, Wang Ling was very puzzled. The situation should be similar to what he had deduced. After all, there was a relatively complete record of the battle in the East Great Emperor's diary. If the East Great Emperor had died here, he probably wouldn't have completed the diary. While Wang Ling was pondering this, the East Great Emperor suddenly laughed loudly at the goddess Jiaoyang in front of him. Jiaoyang, may I ask, are you asking a god to possess you? Not really, I'm just borrowing power. The goddess Jiaoyang shook her head, inexplicably confident. She stared at the East Great Emperor with a sinister look in her eyes. As long as I can kill you, even if the West Great Emperor wants my body, I won't complain. But this is the worst step. I want to kill you with my own hands. Haha. To everyone's surprise, the East Great Emperor actually laughed again when he heard this. Do you think you're the only one who can ask a god to possess you? Speaking up to this point, his heart stirred. Immediately after, a voice rang out in Wang Ling's mind. Great God! What are you waiting for? Quickly possess me. Wang Ling. Chapter 1850. Wang Ling realized that compared with the great emperors of the ancient times, he was still a little younger. At that moment, the innocence of a young man was thoroughly destroyed by the craftiness of the great emperor. He had never thought that he would be schemed against by East Great Emperor, let alone that the history of the diary of East Great Emperor would actually be one in which he had been schemed against. At first, Wang Ling had been worried that his rash actions would change the course of history, but now it seemed that East Great Emperor had even planned this out. Wang Ling found this extremely strange. He had used Tao number 16 to enter the ancient cultivation world of the ancient people in the diary of East Great Emperor. This was his exclusive secret technique, and could be said to be a seamless and heaven-defying method. But East Great Emperor had been able to directly peer into the future. It would have been very difficult for East Great Emperor to peer into the distant future with his own strength. So Wang Ling suspected that East Great Emperor must have done something before Wang Ling had possessed him, which was why he had predicted his arrival. Wang Ling was certainly uncomfortable with such a scheme, but in order not to change the course of history, he had to act on his behalf. After the war, he would definitely ask East Great Emperor for an explanation. Even an emperor couldn't rely on their own strength to peer into the future tens of thousands of years into the future. At that moment, East Great Emperor's body was officially under Wang Ling's control. If you looked closely, you would see that the expression in his eyes had clearly changed. Above the ruined imperial palace, a powerful aura was released from the Great Emperor's body. At this point, the invading elders of West Great Emperor's forces, including Goddess Jiaoyang, could clearly feel a chill on their backs. After East Great Emperor said, "Do you think you're the only one who can invite a god to possess you?" Everything changed. The sudden emergence of an inexplicably powerful force crushed everyone present, like a god descending to the mortal world. Everyone who had spoken wildly just now couldn't help stepping back as a huge sense of fear welled up in their hearts. It was hard to describe this feeling in words. It was an extremely stifling and suffocating feeling. This was Wang Ling's first time fighting so many ancient people with royal blood, especially this goddess Jiaoyang, who had been given some of West Great Emperor's power to condense the nine-headed vermilion bird. The other party's strength could already be considered to be at the pseudo-Tharch level. Previously, he had suppressed the East Great Tharch. If the East Great Tharch hadn't felt that the situation was dangerous, he probably wouldn't have invited a god to possess him. Great East Emperor, why are you bluffing? Someone like you wants to be possessed by a god. An elder from the Great Western Emperor's faction said. Whether it's true or not, you'll know once you try. The East Great Emperor revealed a contemptuous smile. This wasn't Wang Ling replying, but East Great Emperor snatching the microphone while Wang Ling was controlling his body. Wang Ling's heart was burning with rage at this kind of behavior, but he had no choice but to act now. Because according to the course of history, all the invaders who broke into the palace in the diary of the Great East Emperor had a tragic ending. But it was obvious that the Great East Emperor had omitted some things in the diary. For example, when it came to inviting a god to possess him, he had only used a few strokes to play it down without mentioning a single word. Even Wang Ling couldn't have imagined that the god he had invited would be himself. It's useless no matter what you do. With me, the nine-headed vermilion bird, here, you will definitely die today. Goddess Jiaoyang spoke at that moment, her calm expression still revealing her confidence. Although she had noticed that East's great emperor was completely different from just now, she had thought that he was bluffing. How could he really invite a god to possess him? And in such a short period of time? What kind of god would possess someone else's body so casually? Ha ha ha, today we are about to witness history. A new empress has ascended the throne. And it's an empress. The elder from the Great Western Emperor's faction who had been clamoring earlier echoed and laughed again. Boom. Without another word, Wang Ling straightaway made a move with a powerful aura as he grabbed the elder as a warning to the rest. This palm strike was like an inescapable net that came from afar, and directly caused the ground to quake. Since that's the case, this emperor will take you down first. At this critical moment, Great East Emperor and Wang Ling once again put on a two-man show. Wang Ling was in charge of attacking while Great East Emperor was in charge of speaking. Although the two of them didn't communicate much, there was no doubt that they had a clear division of labor at this moment. With me here, don't even think about succeeding, Goddess Jiaoyang said softly. A golden light flashed in her eyes, and a blazing light burst forth from her body. She was well aware that Great East Emperor wanted to kill a chicken to warn the monkeys and eliminate the clamoring person. However, if she allowed the East Great Emperor to have his way in front of her, she would lose all her face. In an instant, the nine-headed vermilion bird Dharma form released a black light in the air. The laws of darkness and light intertwined and condensed into hemp ropes that finally weaved into a dark vermilion bird cage that covered all the elders of Great West Emperor's faction. Wang Ling looked at this scene indifferently, his expression as calm as an ancient well. He didn't care about Goddess Jiaoyang's method at all, and he continued to attack. When his palm approached the dark vermilion bird cage, to Goddess Jiaoyang's surprise, his palm completely covered it. At this moment, the world was silent. Goddess Jiaoyang had never thought that this Great East Emperor would actually dare to directly grab the dark vermilion bird cage that she had woven with his bare hands. For a moment, there was an infinite silence in the air. A moment later, powerful spirit power surged out of Wang Ling's palm, and the supreme vermilion bird Dharma form emerged behind Great East Emperor. Vermilion bird fire, which was infinitely bright, directly burned the dark vermilion bird cage to ashes. At the same time, a powerful ripple surged out, and the clamoring elder was burned to ashes on the spot, leaving nothing behind. How is this possible? Goddess Jiaoyang's beautiful face turned pale. She had never expected Great East Emperor's vermilion bird Dharma form to actually become stronger. It was clearly an eight-tailed vermilion bird earlier. It had one fewer feather than her. At this moment, everyone was shocked. No one had expected that the vermilion bird Dharma form in the sky now actually had 81 feathers on its tail. It was like a peacock, and it even had a tail. This is no longer a vermilion bird. It's the supreme light Mahamayuri, the ultimate form above the nine-tailed vermilion bird. Yiren exclaimed. He and the elders of Great East Emperor, who were bathed in blood as they fought below, were horrified. Everyone's mouths were open so wide that a goose egg could be stuffed inside. In fact, even Wang Ling hadn't expected his own Dharma form spirit, which was the spirit of the universe, to actually possess someone else's Dharma form and directly evolve it into its ultimate form. The supreme light Mahamayuri soared through the sky, and the supreme nomological power of light unleashed infinite destruction in the sky above the Eastern Territory. At that moment, all kinds of magic artifacts on Great West Emperor's side were accurately shattered. Wang Ling was well aware that at this point, these invaders had no chance of survival. He stopped attacking, and instead returned control of his body to Great East Emperor. Once this battle was over, he would remove the fusion with the spirit of the universe. At the same time, the elders who had been shouting to seize the throne turned extremely pale. In a short period of time, Mahamayuri's light shone on them, and then turned them into dried corpses before they turned to ashes. This was a shocking change that happened in the blink of an eye. At that moment, all the elders on Great East Emperor's side were moved, and all the tribes and people in the imperial territory shouted loudly, "Eternal East Emperor!" The vast eastern territory was now a boiling cauldron of voices, and everyone was chanting the 4 words, "Eternal East Emperor." The appearance of the Supreme Light Mahamayuri gave everyone a great boost of morale. And to the invaders, this was definitely a disaster. This kind of Dharma idol was really too terrifying. In order to protect the tribes and people of the Eastern Territory, Great East Emperor was extremely decisive in his actions after being blessed with the power of God possession. Boom! In the next moment, he displayed Mahamayuri's nomological power of light again. Like a great sun, it released countless beams of light, and the cry of a phoenix rose between heaven and earth to clear the way for these beams of punishing light. Under the illumination of the light, dozens more people were directly killed by Great East Emperor's Mahamayuri Dharma form. Then, he controlled Mahamayuri to tear off all the snake tails on the back of Goddess Jiao Yang's 9-headed vermilion bird Dharma form. Goddess Jiao Yang's face turned pale when her Dharma form was damaged. The pain of her body being torn apart was immediately transmitted, and she spat out a large mouthful of blood. Chapter 1851. The huge Supreme Light Mahamayuri soared through the sky, all the feathers on his back spread out like a divine sun, shining in all directions, dispelling the darkness and bringing infinite light. When these rays of light pierced through the layers of clouds and haze and shone on the ground, the invisible pressure made the few survivors tremble. The East Great Emperor did not kill them all, but left a few of the weakest alive. He needed someone to witness this history, to warn all those who coveted the throne of the Eastern region. At the same time, the East Great Emperor didn't expect that the effect of this god possession would be so good. He didn't know what kind of god he had invited to directly upgrade his 8-tailed vermilion bird to Mahamayuri. Such strength was obviously above the emperor level. The 4 great emperors of the East, West, North and South could only be regarded as juniors in the face of such strength. Why is it like this? I didn't expect the East Great Emperor to still have this hidden card. Mahamayuri is so terrifying. The few surviving elders of the Western region turned pale. Although they did not die, they suffered internal injuries and their cultivation regressed by hundreds of years. Even if they had the blood of the royal family, this was a sign of great damage, which meant that they had lost the qualification to compete for the throne. For the East Great Emperor, this was definitely a glorious battle because the appearance of Mahamayuri not only deterred the foreign enemies, but also consolidated the hearts of the people, proving that the fate of the Eastern region's emperor was immortal. At the same time, the invaders from the Western region, including the proud sun goddess, did not expect that the East Great Emperor, who had always been benevolent, could also have a decisive side. At this time, the proud sun goddess took a few golden pills and attacked the East Great Emperor again, not giving up resistance. That was the peerless secret medicine given to her by the West Great Emperor, which could ignore pain for a short period of time, recover from injuries, and stimulate the potential of the body. At this moment, the damaged tail of the vermilion bird Dharma power form was rapidly recovering under the effects of the secret medicine. The severed snake heads grew back wildly, and there were still 9 of them. However, the shape of the heads had changed, becoming thicker than before. In the end, these snake heads grew dragon horns, and dragon roars rose and fell, hissing in the sky. Under the blessing of the secret medicine, the proud sun goddess directly entered a berserk state, and actually went berserk together with the vermilion bird. The romance of the dragon and snake. This is the 9 dragons vermilion bird. In the distance, someone cried out in alarm. Seeing the goddess transformation, everyone revealed an expression of disbelief. At the same time, Goddess Jiao Yang was wantonly roaring, her ear-piercing cries accompanied by the roars of a dragon. Her petite and curvaceous body seemed somewhat out of place. It could be seen that Goddess Jiao Yang was in great pain. Because of the secret medicine, her latent potential had been forced out. Although her battle prowess had been greatly enhanced, the powerful medicinal energy in her body was also a test of her body's endurance. she had to fight while enduring the pain of her body being torn apart. The cultivators of the eastern and western regions were shocked. A few secret medicines could actually cause the Dharma idol to undergo changes in the romance of the dragon and snake. This secret medicine definitely contained the blood of an ancient dragon. Some people had seen the Great Western Emperor use secret medicine to evolve his Dharma idol, but it wasn't as painful as the goddess Jiaoyang. Since then, the Great Western Emperor's secret medicine containing dragon blood had become a legend that had been circulating outside. Many people couldn't believe that this was actually true. Only the power of dragon blood could make the Hydra resonate like this. Compared to before, Goddess Jiaoyang's aura had risen a lot in such a short period of time. The Great Eastern Emperor frowned. At this moment, with the Mahamayuri Dharma idol, he was no longer afraid of anything. Out of kinship, he saw that Goddess Jiaoyang was trying hard to adapt to the impact of the secret medicine, so he didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he deliberately waited for a while. Back then, when the Great Eastern Emperor had punished Goddess Jiaoyang's father for attempting to rebel, he had no choice but to do so. He would never have thought that in the following days, Goddess Jiaoyang would be targeted by the Great Western Emperor and become a tool for revenge. At this moment, his heart was filled with emotion, but the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring and had to be released. After waiting for a while, Goddess Jiaoyang had clearly adapted to the pain. Her originally ferocious face returned to its most beautiful appearance. She used to be like the morning sun, but now her body was emitting embers from the setting sun. Her snow-white and translucent body was covered with traces of the secret medicine's impact on her blood vessels, forming a faint golden pattern that was like a print along her long white neck all the way down to her ankles. At this moment, Goddess Jiaoyang's body carried a strong aura of death, which was accompanied by the sound of dragons roaring all around her. Almost in the blink of an eye, her figure moved. She was as fast as a beautiful and delicate dragon. She directly appeared in front of the East's Great Emperor and whipped her leg at his head. The Great Eastern Emperor reacted quickly and directly raised his left arm to grab Goddess Jiaoyang's snow-white ankle in his hand. The woman in front of him clearly had a strong mix of anger and hatred in her eyes. Her expression was calm, even when her ankle was grabbed. In the blink of an eye, Goddess Jiaoyang's beautiful eyes burst into flames. She directly damaged her body and burned her ankle. That snow-white beautiful foot instantly turned into a cloud of flying ash in the Great Eastern Emperor's palm. Then, her broken foot began to regenerate, returning to its original appearance at a speed visible to the naked eye. Dragon energy protection. Even if the head is broken, it can still be restored. The old ministers of the Great Eastern Territory were all frightened. They didn't expect the battle to develop to this point. In the next moment, Goddess Jiaoyang attacked again. The 9 vermilion birds behind her spat out flames. Under the cover of the scorching and dazzling fire mist, the 9 dragons at the end extended their long bodies and used their strongest power to sweep away thousands of enemies. They actually formed a body array with their bodies and drilled into the ground of the imperial palace, deeply rooting themselves in it. This was extracting the emperor's fate under the Great Eastern Territory. Even the underground spirit veins were absorbed by the 9 dragons array, becoming a constant source of nutrients for Goddess Jiaoyang. Then, Goddess Jiaoyang's aura became significantly stronger. Everyone turned pale with shock. Just what kind of terrifying power was this? The people from the Eastern and Western territories were all dumbfounded. There was no doubt that this kind of continuous absorption of the underground spirit veins and the Empire's fate was a kind of self-destructive behavior. Once the body couldn't withstand such pressure, there was the danger of directly exploding. And the Great Eastern Emperor suddenly understood what Goddess Jiaoyang was doing at this time. He sighed. It turned out that from the beginning, Goddess Jiaoyang had no intention of surviving. This was the purpose of directly perishing together with him. Originally, the Great Eastern Emperor still had a trace of benevolence and didn't want to kill Goddess Jiaoyang. But now, for the sake of his people, he had to do it. He wanted to use the Supreme Light Mahamayuri to eat these 9 dragons like earthworms. Chapter 1852. The 9 dragons' vermilion birds' 9 huge dragon heads were deeply rooted in the ground, like pillars from the sky, wantonly plundering the empire's luck and underground spirit veins. Goddess Jiao Yang absorbed a steady stream of energy, causing the energy density of her petite body to increase. Everyone present felt a strong sense of danger. There was no doubt that this was a method of mutual destruction. This woman is crazy. The surviving members of the royal family from the western regions were all stunned. However, at this time, they had no strength to escape because their bodies were injured. Even if they escaped now, they wouldn't be able to escape far. Once the body of Goddess Jiao Yang exploded, the impact would cover the entire eastern regions of the universe. Not only the land under their feet, but all the planets within this range would be destroyed as well. The East Emperor's expression gradually became indifferent under the pressure of Goddess Jiao Yang. He didn't want to see the situation of fighting against his own kind. However, as an emperor, he had to carry out what he should do as an emperor. He was not afraid at all. With the protection of the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King, he had enough confidence to deal with the current situation. At this moment, the East Emperor had the majesty of a great emperor. He ignored the pressure of the 9 dragons and stood proudly in the sky. His every move was in harmony with heaven and earth. Buzz. In an instant, intense light surged from his body. It was boundless light that emanated from his body, from the Paragon Mahamayaka Dharma idol. It was endless. It's the great emperor's mystic power. Everyone present revealed a look of surprise. The East Emperor was using this power to compete with Goddess Jiao Yang for the empire's luck and the power of the spirit veins under his feet. Because of his identity as a great emperor, using the mystic power of the great emperor didn't require the complicated operation of Goddess Jiao Yang. As the ruler of the eastern regions, as long as he stood there, he could cause an impact and form a long-range competition. In modern terms, Goddess Jiao Yang was like a network cable, while the East Emperor was connected to Wi-Fi. The two were competing for network speed. No one thought that the speed of the East Emperor's long-range competition was so amazing. He stood proudly in the sky and snatched food from the dragon's mouth, as if he was commanding the entire world. Chi-chi-chi-chi. Accompanied by the sound of countless feathers falling, the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King launched a counterattack at the same time. While helping the East Emperor compete, it inserted the feathers into the spine of the 9 dragons. Beneath the ground, the 9 dragons let out pained cries, causing a huge earthquake on the spot. The great East Emperor seized the opportunity and formed a fist seal. Stepping on light, he aimed a punch at the goddess Jiao Yang. A blazing radiance burst forth from his fist, piercing through the heavens and smashing into goddess Jiao Yang's body, instantly sending her flying. He didn't hold back at all, and the weight of his fist was unimaginably heavy. Goddess Jiao Yang didn't expect that the East Great Emperor would still be able to divert his attention to attack her even though he was trying so hard to compete with her for the Empire's luck and spirit veins. Everyone was shocked. Everyone felt that they had underestimated the power of the radiant Supreme King Mahamayuri. The people from the eastern and western regions had forgotten about each other at this moment. They were all discussing the battle below, and all of them were dumbfounded. This Dharma form is too heaven-defying. It can suppress the 9 dragons' vermilion bird. Even if Goddess Jiao Yang swallowed the West deity's secret medicine to upgrade it, it would still be useless. This light Supreme King Mahamayuri can be said to be invincible. It's really strange. Why did the East Great Emperor's Dharma form suddenly upgrade? And he didn't even take the secret medicine. Could he have really been possessed by a god? Where did this god come from? Above the Great Emperor is Dao Ancestor Wang. But how could the venerable Dao Ancestor Wang make a move so easily? But with this light Supreme King Mahamayuri, the East Great Emperor might become Dao Ancestor Wang's successor. The old officials and members of the royal family of the 2 regions were talking below at this moment, forgetting their previous hostility. On the one hand, they were attracted by the battle in the sky, and on the other hand, they couldn't fight anymore. In the face of this kind of battle, the rest of the fight was already completely meaningless. Given the East Great Emperor's current abilities, he could destroy them with a snap of his fingers. The radiant fist shook the goddess Jiao Yang out of the sky, and the East Great Emperor seized the opportunity to immediately manipulate the Light Supreme King Mahamayuri to launch a counterattack. In just a few seconds, the 9 dragons had swallowed up the Empire's luck and the power of the spirit veins. Not only that, even the energy of the 9 dragons had been plundered by Light Supreme King Mahamayuri. Using East Great Emperor's body to watch the battle, Wang Ling saw from a distance that the 9-headed dragon that had taken root in the ground began to shrink rapidly, as if it were riding on an earthworm in a short period of time. The Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King Dharma form that he had strengthened for the East Great Tharch was simply too powerful. This was simply a cheat. There was no need for the East Great Emperor to do anything himself. He had already cleaned up the entire battle in front of him. The 9 dragons' vermilion bird were instantly devoured. Such an ending was hard to believe. She had clearly used the power that the Great Western Emperor had bestowed upon her, but she was still defeated. Her pure white body was dripping with blood, like a white flower oozing with fresh blood. Buzz. The Great East Emperor slowly walked to the front of the goddess Jiao Yang. Without any hesitation, he raised his hand, and the palm of his hand shone with boundless radiance, gushing towards the goddess Jiao Yang. Under everyone's gazes, goddess Jiao Yang finally disappeared, melting into the boundless light without leaving a trace. It's all over. East Great Emperor sighed in his heart, and thanked Wang Ling at the same time. Thank you for your help, great god. Are you sure? Wang Ling replied succinctly. This battle was a battle to establish a nation. The Great West Emperor has always been cautious. Now that he knows that my Dharma form has been promoted to the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King, he won't easily make a move against my eastern territory. The Great East Emperor slowly said to Wang Ling. This battle has won at least 2,000 years of peace for the people of my eastern territory. At least for the duration of my term. The other forces won't dare to make a move against my eastern territory again. After saying that, he flicked his sleeve and looked at the white-robed general manager. Yi Run, I'll leave the rest to you. Send away all the invaders. From now on, they're not allowed to take even half a step into my eastern territory. Yes. Yi Run bowed. Before he left, the Great East Emperor's fingertips pulsed with light, and healed the injuries of all the old officials of the Eastern Territory, who had participated in the battle at the speed of light. After doing all this, he stepped into the back garden of the Imperial Palace. At this point, Wang Ling saw what the Imperial Garden of the Eastern Territory Imperial Palace looked like. It used to be a large field of spirit herbs, but many of them had been destroyed during the battle, which made the Great East Emperor secretly sigh in his heart. But Wang Ling didn't care for any of these spirit herbs. Any one of the ones in his king's treasure pants was more outstanding than these. The purpose of the Great East Emperor coming to the Imperial Garden wasn't to show Wang Ling the ruins, but to directly enter the secret passage that led to the underground palace. It was the location of the East Emperor's underground depository of scriptures. According to the records in the Great East Emperor's diary, after the battle, the Great East Emperor had spent 6 hours alone in the depository of scriptures. After entering the underground depository of scriptures, the Great East Emperor sat on a futon and sighed. I know that Great God must have a lot of questions for me, so I deliberately left some time for you to ask them. Chapter 1853. About an hour ago in the real world. On the other side, after notifying everyone, Lotus Sun immediately took Yu Yueqing to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortals Wuxian Garden, where they had chosen to gather. They arrived late, and by the time they got there, the 9 people they had notified were already sitting neatly in the villa, chatting. Little Silver, dressed in a black suit, was serving tea on the side like a steward. He was even wearing leather shoes, and was no longer barefoot. It seemed that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had taught him well during this period of time. Yu Yueqing didn't know most of the people here, and was even dumbfounded when she saw them. But there was one person she couldn't possibly not know. You're that. Ajua. Yu Yueqing was utterly astonished. She hadn't expected to see him here. When she had heard Lotus Sun's call earlier, she had thought it was someone with the same name, and hadn't expected the person to actually be Ajua himself. The man who had knocked down a 5th-class demon king 7 years ago. It's me. Ajua smiled amiably as usual, He shook hands with Yu Yueqing of his own accord without putting on any airs. On their way here, Lotus Sun had told Audiobook about Yu Yueqing, including how she had deduced Wang Ling's extraordinary ability based on her own abilities. It was necessary to let everyone know about Yu Yueqing in advance. It wasn't that they had to be wary of her. They were childhood sweethearts, so how could they have any bad intentions? After a simple handshake, Audiobook said, I've also heard of Daoist Yu's reputation. In my department, many of my subordinates have gone to Wind Thunder Manor to ask for their fortune. That's right, someone from the General Administration of 100 schools did come. Yu Yueqing then smiled. But how did Director Zhua get to know student Lotus Sun? She's my junior sister. I'm also from number 60 high. I see. Yu Yueqing nodded in sudden realization. Do you need me to introduce the others to Daoist Yu? No need, Director Zhua. Student Lotus Sun already introduced them to me on the way here. I'm not face-blind, and I have a good memory. I can match all the seniors' faces, don't worry. Very well, then let's get down to business. Audiobook nodded in satisfaction, then turned to Golden Lamp Monk. Monk Jin Deng unhurriedly took out a book of quotations from the Master of the Wind and Thunder Heights. Lotus Sun's eyes went wide. How did Senior Golden Lamp get it? Monk Gold Lamp said solemnly. Before I came here, I went to the Wind Thunder Manor in person and retrieved the quotations of the Master of the Wind Thunder Manor, which is suspected to be a record of mysterious runes. Yu Yueqing was also stunned. So the Manor Lord gave it to you just like that? Monk Jin Deng nodded. Villa Master, you've heard of my name. I only said that I passed by this place while cultivating and could consecrate an item for you for free. I didn't expect the Villa Master to give me this quote without hesitation. However, the formal light consecration takes time. Therefore, the Wind Thunder Manor's Manor Lord has allowed this penniless monk to bring the sayings back first. What if the Manor Lord doesn't have this book of quotations? That's impossible. Tyrant smiled. Because I'm bringing little friend Qinzong along. Xiang Yi and Zhang Ziden will be accompanying them as well. Lotus Sun was shocked. So if we can't borrow it, Senior wants Senior Xiang Yi and Senior Zhang to steal it. That's not right. Zhang Ziden crossed his arms and snorted proudly. We're all cultured people. It's not like we won't return this book of quotations. At most, it's a loan. Lotus Sun and Yu Yueqing. Although it still felt a little weird, at least the seniors working together could be considered efficient. Lotus Sun remembered that Xiang Yi and Zhang Ziden had previously made a private agreement to compete legally and in compliance with the rules to see who was the strongest lock picker. Originally, the two of them had agreed to look for residents in their designated areas who could not enter their homes and needed a locksmith. They would provide free lockpicking services, and the one who helped the most people within the same amount of time would be awarded the title of the strongest lockpicking king. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, the competition between the two had yet to be completed. Lotus Sun didn't know what the meaning of winning this title was, but to be honest, sometimes a man's happiness was just that simple. Just as Lotus Sun was in a daze, a familiar voice reached her ears. The video that Daoist Yu sent earlier did indeed have faint mysterious text on it. We've also compared it with this book of quotations. The handwriting is almost the same. Gu Xuanji rubbed the space between his eyebrows. But at the moment, we can't be sure that this mysterious text was written by the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa himself. Why do you think so? Lotus Sun asked. Because the book used to record the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa's quotations is an antique. It's very thick, like a dictionary. The overall material of the quotation is also very special. Even after 10,000 years, the words on it will still be clearly visible, and the paper will be as clean as new without the slightest wrinkle. Gu Xuanji's lips curved as he said. So we now suspect that the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa used this book of quotations a second time. The first half recorded the mysterious text, while the second half recorded the quotation written by the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa himself. Then, seniors, have you found a way to crack the quotation? Yu Yueqing asked as she sat down. She took a sip of the tea that Little Silver had poured for her, and felt that the tea was rich and refreshing, which instantly lifted her spirits. This was the best tea in the world, almost on par with the tea leaves at Lotus Sun's house. But given Audio's current status, Yu Yueqing didn't think it strange that he could produce such tea leaves. She had always thought that Wuxia Garden Villa was Audio's home, but if she had known that it was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's home, she might have been even more astonished by Lotus Sun's connections. Earlier, we took turns to examine it. This mysterious text is indeed very mystical. It's not something an ordinary person can decipher. Li Xian said. He exchanged glances with the others, but in the end he did not reveal the matter of the Ancient One in front of Yu Yueqing. Lu Qingyi held Wang Zhen's arm and said, "So the most likely way to succeed right now is to try it out. I can only let Senior Golden Lamp try." Speaking up to this point, Lotus Sun also remembered that Monk Golden Lamp had the swastika talisman, and was also protected by the Buddha fire of the past, present and future. Even if the swastika talisman was damaged by deciphering the mysterious text, it could be repaired by the Buddha fire. It was just that this test also worried Monk Golden Lamp. After all, from what Lotus Sun had said earlier, Wang Ling didn't want anyone to get involved in this matter. So the monk was still conflicted. Of course, the most important thing was these mysterious texts. Monk Golden Lamp never thought that after living for so many lifetimes, there would actually be texts that he had never seen before. He was worried that if he went too deep after using the swastika talisman, he might directly enter the preset scene of the writing of the mysterious text, and form a soul interaction. If he went too deep, he might be trapped in this world constructed by the mysterious text, and never be able to get out. Chapter 1854. Golden Lamp Monk's concerns weren't unreasonable. After all, even Wang Ling had issued a warning that he didn't want anyone else to get involved. But in the end, the people who understood the immemorial ones the best were the immemorial ones. Wang Ling was invincible in the universe, but it was still very difficult to sort out some of the historical secrets and the complexity of the immemorial ones in a short time. The immemorial ones were like a big, intricate problem. Even if there were thousands of ways to solve it, there was often only one path to the truth. "Let this poor monk see what's inside," Golden Lamp Monk said in a steady voice. This was a mysterious character of the immemorial ones he had never seen before, and it might be risky to peek at it. Perhaps sensing that his direct test might cause damage to his eyeballs, he directly wrapped 2 balls of Buddha fire around the swastikas, and used his power of sight to penetrate it. No one knew what would happen after Golden Lamp Monk's test. Everyone stared unblinkingly at the monk. Li Xian, Zhang Ziden, Qin Zong and Xiangyi sat in a circle around Golden Lamp Monk. They were the 4 strongest people here, and they formed a human flesh spirit array to protect the monk. Will it be dangerous? The atmosphere was far more tense than Lotus Sun had imagined, and in the end, even her breathing had clearly become rapid. I'll do the divination." Yu Yueqing was also very nervous. She hurriedly took out the little turtle shell, closed her eyes, and entered a meditative state. When the ancient coin inside the turtle shell made a crisp sound, it fell out of the crack at the bottom of the turtle shell. Then, it stood steadily on the floor. It's an unknown divination, and the danger is unknown. Yu Yueqing's face was immediately filled with astonishment. She had never encountered an ancient coin standing upright on the floor after it fell out of the turtle shell. The probability of this happening was minuscule. That was to say, there was no way she could predict anything about Golden Lamp Monk. How could this be? Yu Yueqing frowned slightly, lost in thought. To rule out the possibility of a coincidence, she stuffed the ancient coin back into the turtle shell, and once again entered an ethereal and calm state as she tried to do the divination. Ding ding! The second time, the ancient coin fell from the small turtle shell. After swaying a few times, it stood upright on the floor. It's standing up again. Lotus Sun also gazed at the ancient coin, which was like a straight man made of steel, lost in thought. The first time was a coincidence, but both times it was standing on the floor. The probability was too low. Lotus Sun couldn't help sweating on her forehead. The water here was too deep. Perhaps they really wouldn't be able to grasp it with just a few of them. She had never seen such a divination before. Even Yu Yueqing did not expect it to happen twice in a row. Then again, what kind of divination was the scariest? Yu Yueqing would have been fine if it was those ominous signs. Therefore, it was always the divinatory signs that were full of the unknown that were the scariest. Buzz. At the same time, in the villa of Wenxian Garden, with monk Jin Deng as the center, a powerful fluctuation came out of the monk's body, setting off a powerful spiritual wave. At the same time, the monk's swastika was bleeding, and tears of blood kept flowing from the corner of his eyes. It was clear that in the process of infiltrating the mysterious text, the swastika was already in a state of high stress, and it was already difficult for it to withstand. Ajua, Gu Xuanji, Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi reacted quickly, and the remaining four immediately surrounded Lotus Sun and Yu Yueqing to form another human formation to protect them first. Little Silver, on the other hand, held a kitchen knife and looked like he was ready to offer his blood at any moment. Like Loopy Toad, he was already a divine beast. Coupled with the special healing ability of the Silver Wildebeest clan, Little Silver's blood was almost a natural panacea for healing. This fluctuation of spirit power was so intense that everyone thought that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa was about to explode. At that moment, the veins on Monk Jin Deng's temples bulged. He put his palms together, and with an angry shout, he actually forcibly suppressed this fluctuation of spirit power. Lotus Sun. Did you suppress it? Ajua. It looks like it's under control, but I still feel that something isn't right. The rest of them stepped forward to take a look, and saw that Monk Jin Deng and the four people guarding him, Zhang Ziden, Li Xian, Xiang Yi and Qin Zong, were all hanging their heads and closing their eyes, as if they were disconnected. Although they could feel their even breathing, no matter how much Ajua yelled, they didn't respond at all. This isn't good. They might have fallen into the world of this mysterious text. Gu Xuanji shouted in a low voice, almost immediately voicing his thoughts. You can even experience this in an immersive way? After all, this is a mysterious text that even Senior Jin Deng has never seen before, so it's not surprising that it has this kind of power. Gu Xuanji frowned. In this state, it's very difficult to wake them up using normal methods. Furthermore, they've entered an unknown world. At the moment, we can't be sure if they've fallen into a state of soul transmigration. If they're in a soul transmigration state, if they're in danger in that world, they might also be seriously injured. On the other hand, if they don't act according to the script recorded in the mysterious text, they might change the current trajectory of the world. After the analysis, Lotus Sun immediately knew that they were in big trouble. She was extremely remorseful that she shouldn't have disobeyed Wang Ling and forcibly intervened in this matter. The scene was silent for about 10 seconds. Faced with the situation in front of them, the rest of them didn't know how to deal with it. Can't we wake them up? Should we try slapping them? Wang Jin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In fact, he wasn't sure if he could do it this way, but it seemed that he couldn't think of any other way at the moment. Without another word, he stepped forward and directly chose to slap Zhang Ziden. Did Senior Zhang really offend Brother Wang Jin? Lotus Sun asked weakly. Not really, it's just that I heard that he has a dark history of stealing people, so I'm a little upset, Wang Jin answered truthfully. The rest of the people. There's no other way, we can only try it as a last resort. Wang Jin was a bold master, but as soon as he slapped Zhang Ziden in the face, he instantly twitched as if he had been electrocuted. Wang Jin, watch out. Lu Qingyi was anxious when she saw this, and hurriedly rushed forward. Don't go, it's dangerous. Yu Yueqing was quick to react, and immediately pulled Lu Qingyi back. Sister Qingyi, Taoist you. Lotus Sun also reacted quickly, and immediately released Mysterious C's sword qi in an attempt to make it resemble a long whip, and pull Ajua back. Shifu, it's dangerous. Ajua knew that things weren't looking good, and hurriedly tried to save him. But in the end he was still a step too late, and with his final heart-wrenching cry, just like that, in the form of Calabash Brothers saving Grandpa, the remaining four entered the world outlined by the mysterious text together with Zhang Ziden's body. Chapter 1855. In a daze, Lotus Sun woke up. Her consciousness was clear, and she could still remember what had just happened. That's right. In order to save someone, they had linked up with Zhang Zistiel's body like the Calabash brothers saving their grandpa. Then, in the blink of an eye, her body began to twitch as if she had been electrocuted, and a mysterious force pushed her soul out of her body and into a mysterious vortex. When she woke up, she found herself covered in bandages and lying in a place full of light. Boundless light shone in from the huge floor-to-ceiling windows and fell on the side of the bed. The vermilion gauze curtain, which was embroidered with the mark of the vermilion bird, fluttered in the wind. Lotus Sun immediately realized that she had entered an unknown territory. Just as Monk Jin Deng had said at the beginning, they had probably fallen into the world outlined by the mysterious text together. What should I do? Lotus Sun got up, and very quickly realized that this body wasn't hers. This was because she could clearly feel that her chest had become much heavier. This shouldn't be something that someone her age should be able to do. So even if she didn't look in the mirror, she clearly knew that she wasn't her real self right now. Only her soul was her own. Ing, are you there? The strong sense of unfamiliarity made her feel a little uncomfortable. She tried to call out to Sun Yinger, but she didn't respond at all. Could it be that because this body didn't belong to her, the shadow also didn't belong to her? Was that why she couldn't resonate with Sun Yinger? Or perhaps Sun Yinger had also entered this world constructed by the mysterious text, and was playing a certain role. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. Fortunately, she could feel that the resonance between her and Mysterious C was still there, and she was on standby. As long as she wanted to, Mysterious C could still be summoned to protect her at any time. But she didn't dare to act rashly now. If the world here is like what those seniors said, a world of the past outlined by the primordial ones, then everything I do here that goes against the course of history might change the future. Closing her eyes, Lotus Sun lay on the bed, calmed her thoughts, and analyzed the situation at hand. Her top priority was to know who her role in this world was. Since you're awake, stop pretending. The Emperor spared your life, but it doesn't mean that the rest of us have forgiven you. At this moment, a young and magnetic voice sounded out from the side. Yi Run, the white-robed chief steward of the Great East Emperor, slowly walked out from the side door. His footsteps were very light, and his clothes were slightly messy. It was obvious that he had just finished dealing with some important matters, and then he came here looking travel-worn. Where is the Emperor? Lotus Sun asked. She was merely playing along with the conversation, mainly to find out her identity. Jiaoyang, you don't have the right to take the initiative to meet the Emperor, Yi Run said solemnly. The Blazing Sun? So this is her name? Moreover, judging from the current situation, Lotus Sun felt that this Blazing Sun must have made a mistake. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been beaten to this state. The most likely outcome was that Jiaoyang had fought with the Emperor mentioned by the white-robed general manager. Then, at the critical moment of life and death, the person called the Emperor had spared Jiaoyang's life. After waking up, she'd entered the body of Lady Jiaoyang. However, entering the body wasn't the key. The key question now was how she was going to return to the original real world. Sorry, I don't remember anything. Helpless, Lotus Sun could only feign ignorance. She couldn't pretend in this situation, and it would instead give people clues. Thus, amnesia was always a very effective excuse. Since it was amnesia, it wouldn't be too strange for her to behave differently from before. You've committed a heinous crime, and you want to use amnesia to cover it all up? Yiren laughed. He clasped his hands behind his back and stared at her. You should be able to move now, right? Get up and follow me to a place. The Emperor wants to see you later. Lotus Sun had no choice but to comply. After all, she couldn't do anything that would go against the course of history. At this moment, her body was wrapped in layers of bandages, and she looked like a walking mummy. Yi Ren threw a robe at her, and after putting it on, she looked even more indistinguishable from a ghost. This slightly startled Lotus Sunday. She looked woodenly at Yi Ren. Senior, what I've committed is a crime punishable by death. Hee, I can't believe I'm able to become your goddess Jiaoyang Senior. It seems that you really don't remember anything. A meaningful smile appeared in Yi Ren's eyes. In the past, you were so arrogant and would never be so polite to others. Jiaoyang, compared to the current you, I admire your wild and unruly self more. You still haven't answered my question, Lotus Sun said solemnly. That's right. Yiren nodded slightly and looked at her. Since you don't remember anything, I'll tell you. You colluded with the great Western Emperor, and led a group of Western regions royalty in an attempt to rebel. This debt is enough for you to die 10 million times over. As he spoke, Yiren led Lotus Sun through the long winding corridors of the palace. All the guards here had been withdrawn, and Lotus Sun saw that her surroundings were in a mess. There were broken walls and rubble everywhere, clearly traces of a recent battle. The style of the room just now was clearly quite modern, but now that they were on the periphery, it was actually in the style of an ancient palace. This made Lotus Sun even more amazed by this mysterious world. Since this mysterious text had come from the hands of the Ancient One, Lotus Sun deduced that she might be trapped in the world of the Ancient One. As he led Lotus Sun away, Yiren said, "At present, only I know that the Emperor chose to spare your life in the end. I hope that you won't make any more disobedient moves, otherwise not even Tao Ancestor Wang will be able to save you. You've also seen the Emperor's supreme light, Mahamayuri, that's an invincible existence. So in the eyes of others, I'm already dead? You were burned to ashes by Mahamayuri's light. This scene was seen by everyone in the eastern regions, otherwise it wouldn't be enough to appease the common people," Yiren said. After walking for about 10 minutes, the two finally arrived in front of a locked palace. This was a relatively well-preserved building in the Great Eastern Emperor's palace after the war. Lotus Sun thought that Yiren would directly open the door, but to her surprise, he didn't take out the key. Instead, he grabbed the palace's spirit lock and began to study it. In the end, he slowly took out an iron wire from his sleeve. Lotus Sun was stunned. The other party was clearly the Emperor's man, so why would he use an iron wire to open his own palace? In that instant, realization dawned on Lotus Sunday. She stared at Yiren's back and asked tentatively, May I ask if you're Senior Xiang Yi or Senior Zhang Zipei?" As soon as she said this, Yiren's figure clearly froze. Then he turned his head back in shock. "I'm Zhang Zipei, could it be that you're Miss Lotus Sun?" Chapter 1856. After confirming their gazes, she had met the right person. Lotus Sun had never imagined that she would run into Zhang Zipei so soon. And most importantly, Zhang Zipei had disguised himself extremely well. If it weren't for his habit of casually taking out the wire, Lotus Sun probably wouldn't have been able to tell that this was Zhang Zipei himself. Lotus Sun concluded that the reason why Zhang Zipei could disguise himself so well was mainly because he was originally an eternal being. Since he was an eternal being, he should also have some understanding of this period of history. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that Zhang Zipei's memory synchronization with this body was better than hers. Lotus Sun felt that perhaps Goddess Jiaoyang really had lost her memory, which was why she hadn't received any memories of her. "I didn't expect Miss Sun to have actually entered Goddess Jiaoyang's body." This time, even Zhang Zidi was horrified. Fortunately, he finally met someone he was familiar with, which made Zhang Zidi feel relieved at the same time. However, this greeting made Lotus Sun a little nervous. "Hey, not following the script, is it okay? Miss Sun doesn't need to worry too much. As long as you do what you set out to do within the stipulated time, and according to the historical trajectory, it won't affect the future. It won't affect the future." After saying this, Zhang Zipei couldn't help but sigh. The key now is how to find the others, and how to get out of this mysterious old world. As long as we complete this period of history recorded in the mysterious text, and complete the process as it was, it'll be fine, right? In theory. Zhang Zipei nodded. But I still feel that this is a trap set up by someone behind the scenes, and it has been planned for many years. I'm afraid the purpose behind it isn't that simple. This is a great means of crossing timelines in space. Even that guy Golden Lamp couldn't withstand the pressure. And the number of people who have the ability to do this can be counted on one hand. Is it Tao Ancestor Wang? It's possible, but there's no evidence. Zhang Zipei nodded. Apart from Tao Ancestor Wang, it's also possible that it's the 4 emperors who are ranked below him. As he spoke, he tested the keyhole with the wire. After a while, he opened the sealed palace gate and let Lotus Sun in. I remember that I'm going to see a great emperor later? Lotus Sun asked as she followed behind. It's the great East Emperor, Zhang Zizi replied, and then a hint of suspicion appeared on his face. Strange, Miss Sun didn't get any of her memories. Not at all. I can only deduce from this injured body that it has just gone through a great battle. And this body's original memories have not entered my mind at all. Strange. When I entered the white-robed general manager's body, his memories were synchronized with mine. Sigh, that's not all. I noticed that Ying-er has also disappeared. Lotus Sun sighed. Sun Ying-er? That Void Master? Your shadow? Yes. I'm afraid it won't be easy. Zhang Zizi frowned and suddenly felt the complexity of the problem. What do you mean? There is a very low but terrifying possibility, Zhang Ziyan whispered. Could it be that Goddess Jiao Yang's physical body and spiritual consciousness are separated and synchronized? What Senior Zhang means is that Ying-er inherited that memory, and I only inherited this body. That's what I mean. Zhang Zizi nodded. If that's the case, it'll be especially troublesome. This means that before we leave this world, we have to find Miss Ying-er, otherwise we'll change the course of history. According to historical records, Goddess Jiao Yang was burned to ashes in front of everyone in the Eastern Territory by the Great East Emperor's Supreme Light Mahamayuri. Since then, there are no historical records, but the truth is that Goddess Jiao Yang is still alive. Furthermore, she will be imprisoned in the Great East Emperor's imperial palace for a very long time, never to leave again. Even so, her soul and body have never been separated. If we leave her alone, I'm afraid it'll cause other variables in the future. As Lotus Sun listened to Zhang Zizi's analysis, her expression became more and more solemn. She hadn't wanted to cause trouble for him, but she hadn't expected her momentary willfulness to actually lead to this situation. This is an inevitability of history. Miss Sun, you don't have to blame yourself or be nervous. We still have a final trump card, don't we? At that moment, Zhang Zizi comforted her. Back in the day, this godly thief had also been a Casanova who had gone around flirting, and he had more or less persecuted all the attractive young women and girls of the ancient ages. Not to mention the thoughts of a little girl like Lotus Sunday. Even if her face was bandaged, Zhang Zizi could read it in her eyes. It was too easy to understand. The trump card that Senior Zhang is talking about, is it student Wang Ling? Who else could it be but Ling Jinren? Zhang Zizi laughed bitterly. Miss Sun and that Taoist you discovered the mysterious text on the white wall earlier, and Ling Jinren told you not to get involved. If Ling Jinren investigated the text, I think there's an 80 to 90% chance that he's also entered this world. He's playing a certain role. So the key now is to find Ling Jinren. But Ling Jinren doesn't talk much, so it'll be too difficult to tell which one is Ling Jinren. Zhang Zizi's head hurt. For example, in the werewolf game, there were always newbie players who were clumsy with their mouths. They got their identity cards but didn't know how to analyze the situation, so they stayed silent for the entire game. In the end, they held their identity cards and were beaten by the wolves. Since entering the modern cultivation world, Zhang Zizi had also become addicted to werewolf games, and meeting this type of silent teammate in a werewolf game was often the most frustrating thing to do. Let's go in first. For now, we can only think of another way. Zhang Zizi sighed as he suddenly felt that the difficulty of this game had skyrocketed. He took Lotus Sun to the interior of the palace, which was originally East Great Emperor's spare Yangxin Palace Hall. It was usually sealed off, and only Yi Run had the key. So Zhang Zizi actually had a key on him, but it didn't matter to him whether or not he had the key, because no matter what kind of lock it was, his iron wire could open it. For Zhang Zizi, the iron wire was a master key. This was a secret meeting. Zhang Zizi took Lotus Sun to the designated place, and then put down the gauze curtain on the side. Behind the gauze curtain, Lotus Sun's figure looked hazy and indistinct, as if East Great Emperor had summoned some concubine. No one would have thought that behind the gauze curtain was the blazing sun goddess who had turned to ashes in front of everyone. At that moment, Zhang Zizi rang the bell, and a palace maid entered the palace hall with a tray on which was an exquisite jade porcelain pot. However, this palace maid's walking posture was very strange, as if she was very uncomfortable with the weight of her chest, and she was limping. Chapter 1857. The palace maid walked unsteadily with the tray in her hands. Although there wasn't much of an expression on her face, Lotus Sun and Zhang Ziqin were keenly aware that something was wrong. They looked at each other and confirmed the look in their eyes again, thinking that this palace maid might be on their side. However, not everyone had a particularly obvious habit, and not everyone was like Zhang Zipei, whose body was made of iron wire. So it was hard to tell who was living in this palace maid's body with the naked eye. "Excuse me, are you little friend Gu Xuanji?" Zhang Ziqin asked without hesitation at that moment. His intuition told him that it was probably a man in this palace maid's body, because it was very obvious that her walking posture wasn't right, and she seemed to be troubled by the sudden weight on her chest. And there were only a few men among them. If it was Li Xian, Zhang Ziqin could immediately tell that monk Jin Deng had experienced being a woman in countless reincarnations, so it wouldn't feel out of place even if he entered a woman's body. That left Qin Zong, Xiang Yi, Gu Xuanji and Wang Zhen, of course. Zhang Ziqin wasn't too familiar with any of them, so he could only rely on his intuition to guess blindly. As soon as he said this, the palace maid instantly looked up with an expression that looked like she was about to cry. "I'm Wang Zhen, not Gu Xuanji." At that moment, Zhang Ziqin and Lotus Sun couldn't help bursting into laughter. Wang Zhen's visibly aggrieved and tearful voice made the two of them burst out laughing. To be honest, after confirming his relationship with Lu Qingyi, perhaps because of Lu Qingyi's strong performance in love, Wang Zhen would occasionally dream of suddenly becoming a woman, for a straight man of steel. This was simply tremendous torture. But Wang Zhen never thought that he would actually encounter this kind of thing one day. Not only had he transmigrated and entered the mysterious diary world, he had even become a palace maid in the imperial palace. Wang Zhen's heart was on the verge of collapse. Furthermore, this palace maid didn't seem to be in good health. Wang Zhen had been feeling nauseous ever since he had entered her body. "So it's brother Wang Zhen. I'm Zhang Ziqin, and the one sitting inside is Miss Sunday Sai. I didn't expect the eternal cultivation realm to be so big. Yet the three of us were able to meet here. It must be fate." Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Yi Run, couldn't help but sigh. "I have to find a way back as soon as possible. This body is too weak. I feel like vomiting at the slightest provocation. I can't stay here any longer," Wang Zhen said worriedly. "Weak? It can't be." Hearing that, Zhang Zizi frowned. These are the palace maids of the great emperor's imperial palace. Although they are called palace maids, they are actually hired by the imperial family. Every palace maid has an extraordinary background. The one you're currently possessing is the Holy Stone cult's holy maiden. She was sent into the palace to gain experience, and her strength is not weak either. She is at the Tao God realm. Wang Zhen was immediately dumbfounded when he heard this. What? Tao God? He was astonished. In their God realm, a Tao God could be the head of a family. But in the Eternal Era, a Tao God was just a palace maid. However, after hearing Zhang Zizi's words, Wang Zhen suddenly felt that the forces of the Eternal Era were very complicated. All the sects actually fought to send their own people into the palace, and they even did it in the name of gaining experience. Why was it completely different from the feudal dynasties in history that he had heard of? So she really is a holy maiden? The astonishment on Wang Zhen's face didn't diminish. No wonder I saw some scenes of people worshipping her in my memory. However, this holy maiden's memory seems to be incomplete. Her memory after entering the palace is fragmented. Something bad must have happened to her, and she might have selective amnesia. Zhang Zizi said with a frown. According to the memories provided by Yi Run, he only knew that these men and women who were sent into the imperial palace had extraordinary backgrounds. He only remembered a few special ones, but not all of them had names that matched. For example, the saintess of the Holy Stone cult usually had a cold expression on her face, which was why Yi Run had a particularly deep impression of her. It was also because she usually did not speak much, and kept a low profile that Yi Ren's understanding of her was limited to her background. But at that moment, he heard Wang Zhen mention that this holy maiden had a weak body. Zhang Zizi's expression began to turn suspicious. He took a few steps forward and grabbed Wang Zhen's wrist. After holding it for a moment, the smile on his face gradually grew more arrogant. I see. What's wrong? Don't be a riddler. I'm about to die of annoyance, Senior Zhang. Wang Zhen said irritably. If I'm right, it should be that you— oh no, your body is pregnant. Wang Zhen. Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then what should we do now? If we can't go back, then— Zhang Zizi nodded his head. That's right. If we can't go back, I'm afraid little friend Wang Zhen will have to personally experience the pain of childbirth for 10 months. Wang Zhen. Zhang Zizi also had a sympathetic expression on his face regarding Wang Zhen's misfortune. We were all sent here by the power of the mysterious text, and we haven't found a way to get out yet. Apart from the three of us, we don't know what role the others play in this world. The only way to save us is to find Ling Zhenren. I'm sure he's also playing a role here. Of course, Ling Zhenren doesn't like to talk, so finding him is as difficult as ascending to heaven. If we really can't go back, then since we're already here, let's just make the best of it. Saying that, he couldn't help patting Wang Zhen on the shoulder with an expression of trying hard to hold in his laughter. This kind of thing would undoubtedly be a heavy blow to anyone who experienced it. No one could have expected such a blunder. Hurry up and sort out your expression, little friend Wang Zhen. Now isn't the time for you to cry. We still have to act according to the plot, otherwise we'll affect the course of history. He did his best to comfort Wang Zhen. Step aside and sort out your emotions first. At the very least, don't let Yi's great emperor see through it. The emperor of the Eastern Territory will be here soon. Okay. But Senior Zhang, you have to think of a way. Wang Zhen nodded. Of course. I'm here. I won't let you and Miss Sun be trapped here forever. At that moment, Zhang Zizi comforted him again. Lotus Sun and Wang Zhen hadn't expected Zhang Zizi to be so unexpectedly reliable at this critical moment. Then Yangxin Palace Hall immediately quieted down. The three of them waited inside for a while before the shout of an old official came from outside the hall. The emperor has arrived. A valiant man dressed in a vermilion bird imperial robe, and wearing an emperor's jade feather crown on his head slowly strolled into Yangxin Palace Hall surrounded by attendants. Chapter 1858. Just a few hours ago, Wang Ling and Yi's great emperor had had a cordial and friendly conversation. Of course, it was Wang Ying who had spoken, and Wang Ling had only asked Wang Ying to pass on the questions while he listened on the side. This directly caused Yi's great emperor's back to break out in sweat during the entire questioning process. Compared with Wang Ling, Wang Ying didn't have such a good temper, nor would she spoil Yi's great emperor. She had been extremely irritable from beginning to end. Yi's great emperor felt a chill run down his spine when he heard every sharp question. He even suspected that he might have invited a Zuan god to possess him. You mean that you listened to someone else's instructions and set up this trap, but you actually don't know who the person is? Then why did you bring me here for a secret talk? Are you still talking about ghosts? Yi's great emperor sat obediently on a praying mat in the depository of Buddhist texts, and accepted Wang Ying's reprimand. I swear on my dignity as an emperor that everything I said is true. That person gave me directions in my dream. It was just an outline. I couldn't see his face clearly. Speaking up to this point, Yi's great emperor felt very wronged and couldn't help sighing. I thought that after ascending to the throne, I was already invincible under Tao ancestor Wang. I didn't expect that there would always be a higher mountain in the cultivation world. Receiving directions from an almighty was something I happened to encounter by accident. How can I spy on someone with such ability to set up a trap across the ages? So I really don't know anything about his identity. Great God, you should understand. Just like I don't know anything about yours. Hearing this, Wang Ying laughed. Heh, you're really a very level-headed person. Then let me ask you, is it possible that Tao ancestor Wang is behind this? It doesn't seem like Tao Ancestor Wang's style of doing things. East Great Emperor shook his head. Tao Ancestor has always been outstanding. Every time he makes a move, it's earth-shattering, and he's eager for others to know about it. He has enough confidence in his strength, so he dares to do this. Thus, Tao Ancestor's style has always been to attack quickly, to decide victory or defeat in the shortest possible time. Although I can't rule out the possibility of a long-term plot, I think the possibility is very low. When Wang Ling heard this in secret, he couldn't refute it for a moment. Because based on the current situation, Tao Ancestor Wang seemed to have such a personality. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used the sovereign corpse shrouding diagram to find all sorts of excuses and lock up all the primordial ones he could find in a short period of time. On the surface, it looked like Tao Ancestor Wang was being unreasonable, but Wang Ling had previously judged that Tao Ancestor Wang had done this on purpose. It was highly likely that they were worried that the primordial ones would be destroyed like the Great Old Ones or the Dragon Race, so they thought of this method to continue the fire seed. Therefore, Tao Ancestor Wang must have realized something back then, which was why he made such an extreme move. He didn't even hesitate to ruin his own reputation, making those immortals trapped in the corpse wrapping diagram hate him. You've been talking for half a day, but all you've said is useless nonsense. Let me ask you, have you seen Tao Ancestor Wang? Where is this old tortoise now? Can you see him? Wang Ying asked impatiently. To actually call Tao Ancestor Wang an old turtle, East Great Emperor was shocked and continued to wipe his sweat. Sure enough, as he had guessed, this great god who had possessed him wasn't Tao Ancestor Wang at all. Otherwise, there was no way he would speak like this. We 4 emperors have all seen Tao Ancestor. How do I put it? He looks more amiable than we imagined, and is a modest gentleman. Although he's called Tao Ancestor, he's actually not as old as we imagined, and is full of benevolence. East Great Emperor said with a slightly nostalgic expression. But Tao Ancestor's whereabouts are mysterious. Unless he comes to see us, even great emperors have no way of finding him. Also, he never intervenes in the affairs of us 4 emperors. Even when we are at loggerheads, he doesn't intervene. So I don't think it was Tao Ancestor who caused the Eastern Territory crisis this time. After asking for a long time, there didn't seem to be any useful information, and Wang Ling and Wang Ying couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. But this experience wasn't completely fruitless. At the very least, it helped them better understand the structure of the cultivation world and the distribution of power in the primordial ones, which would be helpful for Wang Ling's subsequent construction of utopia for the primordial ones. The scene fell into a long silence. As East Great Emperor sweated, he suddenly asked anxiously, Great God, are you still there? Wang Ying, I've been asking for a long time, but you don't have any information at all. I'm going to leave. East Great Emperor. Don't, Great God. You have to stay for a few more days. There's a gathering of the 4 emperors on the trade planet in the Central Territory tomorrow, and I have to write it down in my diary. If you leave now, it won't match up with the contents of the diary. That's your diary. What does it have to do with us? Wang Ying chuckled. Because I'm going to write in my diary that I'm going to reveal Supreme Light Mahamayuri on the trade planet. If you leave, won't I be unable to do it? If I can't do it, I'll affect the course of history. Then destroy it, I'm tired. Don't. Great God. Hearing that Wang Ying was going to leave so decisively, East Great Emperor was so anxious that tears instantly welled up in his eyes. Just 2 more days, Great God. Please stay for 2 more days at most. The gathering of the 4 emperors is very important, because it involves some of the Western Territory's compensation to our Eastern Territory. If I don't show my Dharma form to demonstrate my power, West Great Emperor won't be afraid of me at all. It was hard to believe that East Great Emperor, who was full of imperial majesty in front of outsiders, actually had this side to him in the depository of Buddhist texts. Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh at the way he humbly begged for help. But the truth was that Wang Ling was still very curious about the eternal cultivation world. Furthermore, the gathering of the 4 emperors and the trade planet sounded very interesting. He wondered if there were any crispy noodle snacks from the eternal cultivation world on sale on this trade planet. Thus, after about 2 or 3 minutes of silence, Wang Ying received Wang Ling's affirmative reply and passed it on his behalf. Then 2 more days at most. Once 2 days are up, I'll leave, Wang Ying said. Okay, great God. This emperor is here to thank you. Emperor? Emperor's emperor? Wang Ying chuckled. How could I? It's my younger brother's younger brother. East's great emperor reacted quickly. Big brother. I'm counting on you. Who's your big brother? You sure know how to make connections. Wang Ying couldn't help laughing. What other plans do you have? It seems we're almost done discussing them. I still have to see Jiaoyang later. Big brother, you should know that I didn't execute her. Of course, if she wants to live, she can't use the identity of goddess Jiaoyang anymore. East's great emperor said. So I erased her memory. I also used the vermilion bird fire to change her appearance. After the fire is healed, she'll look completely new. And now, I'm going to see her and give her a new identity. Why did you do this for the daughter of a traitor? Wang Ying was curious. Wang Ling was also curious about this. Because she's my daughter. Chapter 1859. Since the beginning of time, Wang Ling felt that he had learned a lot after experiencing it for himself this time. He had learned from East's great emperor that Jiaoyang was the child of East's great emperor, and an ancient being who wasn't of royal blood when he was young. But out of consideration for his identity and environment, he couldn't directly adopt Jiaoyang. Thus, he entrusted Jiaoyang to his good brother Sheng Zihua to adopt. To the outside world, he just said that Sheng Zihua had a daughter, and no one would doubt it. But the problem now was that East's great emperor had long known that goddess Jiaoyang was his daughter. Furthermore, he had entrusted his daughter to his trusted good brother. Why was this Sheng Zihua's entire clan exterminated for the crime of treason? This was the biggest question Wang Ling had after learning the whole story. But it was obvious that this had touched a sore spot for East's great emperor, so he didn't pursue the matter. Wang Ling wasn't a person who liked gossip. Moreover, he had no interest in these ancient affairs that were like a garrulous book about family trifles. Now he just wanted to know who this Dao ancestor Wang was. And who was the mastermind behind this ancient transmigration. Judging from the clues he had collected so far, Dao ancestor Wang was only a suspect, and wasn't necessarily the mastermind behind this. But apart from Dao ancestor Wang, who else had the ability to do this? Baizha? Or the god of the grave? Although Wang Ling had his doubts, he didn't think that these two people had the ability to set up such a scheme. Otherwise, they would have already defeated him in the previous contests. According to the progress of the diary, what Wang Ling had to do next was to follow East's great emperor to Yangxin Palace Hall to meet goddess Jiaoyang, who had completely changed her appearance and had even lost that crucial memory. There were so many teleportation spirit arrays in the huge imperial palace that it was impossible to count them all. Thousands of them were intertwined with each other. East's great emperor had ordered people to set them up, and no one knew the overall layout better than him. Therefore, wherever one wanted to go, they only needed to be proficient in using these spirit arrays to easily complete the teleportation. When Wang Ling arrived at Yangxin Palace Hall, he found goddess Jiaoyang covered in bandages already sitting behind the gauze curtain. In addition, Yi Run, the only person who knew what was going on, and East's great emperor's most trusted palace, maid were waiting quietly in a secret corner. The rest of the people stood outside the hall in 2 rows, and listened to the announcement with their heads lowered. This palace maid's identity is not ordinary. Is he also a member of the royal family? Wang Ying asked directly. That's right. She's the saintess of the Holy Stone cult. I came here to gain experience. The great East Emperor replied silently in his heart. Oh. Wang Ying answered lightly. However, his gaze remained on the saintess of the Holy Stone sect. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that this saintess had a familiar feeling. In fact, it was not only Wang Ying who felt this way. Wang Ling also felt that there was something wrong with this holy girl. It wasn't just the saintess who felt that something was wrong. Even goddess Jiaoyang felt that something was wrong. The haughty goddess was sitting there, her well-behaved posture revealing a kind of uneasiness. Wang Ling felt that this sitting posture was a little familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Sometimes, even the slightest movement could make people feel that something was wrong. Thus, Wang Ling's gaze was fixed on this goddess Jiao Yang, hoping to find some clues. During this process, she was also secretly sizing up the Great East Emperor from ancient times. For some reason, she felt that the way the Great East Emperor looked at her seemed a little strange. It was a kind that couldn't be described with words. Her first intuition was that it was very similar to the way Old Man Sun looked at her. Reporting to Emperor, Sheng Jiaoyang has arrived. She awaits Emperor's judgment. After confirming that the doors of Yangxin Palace were closed, and that the Great East Emperor was sitting firmly in his seat, Yiren immediately bowed and reported. "Thank you for your hard work, Yiren," the Great East Emperor said. "In addition, Yiren, you must remember that she will no longer be called Sheng Jiaoyang. From now on, she will follow my surname, Xia. Her name will be Xinyan." "Yes." Yiren nodded. Then he looked at Goddess Jiao Yang. "Aren't you going to thank Emperor for the name?" While Lotus Sun was in a daze, the Great East Emperor hurriedly waved his hand, the expression in his eyes unusually kind. "Forget it, it's just a name, no need to be so polite." After all, Yi Run was the white-robed steward at the Great East Emperor's side, and he knew more secrets about the Great East Emperor than anyone else in the imperial palace. Therefore, after hearing this name, Zhang Zipei also quickly received physical feedback from Yi Ren's body and searched for a memory related to this name. It was the truth of the Sheng family's rebellion back then, and it was an exceptionally cruel part of history. But for Zhang Zipei, who was also an ancient being, it wasn't so hard to accept. He had long since become numb to all kinds of open and veiled struggles in the ancient times. Back then, it was because he couldn't afford to play with these people that he embarked on a road of no return that relied on stealing to make a living. But who would have thought that after such a long time, not only would he be reborn in modern cultivation society, he would even serve as a consultant for the entire Songhai City anti-pickpocketing squad. Just as Zhang Zipei was in a daze, the Great East Emperor spoke again. "Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, the Four Emperors' Assembly will be held on a trade planet in the Central Territory. Xia Xinyan will also come with me." According to the script, Zhang Zipei hurriedly retorted, "Emperor, please reconsider. Even if you have already changed your identity, it's still risky. The Great West Emperor is crafty. If something goes wrong, it's fine." The Great East Emperor said calmly, "I want to slap his face in front of him. I want him to never have any evil thoughts about Xinyan in the future. Otherwise, my Supreme Light Mahamayuri will burn the Western Territory into purgatory at any time." This domineering statement reverberated through the spacious hall, causing the atmosphere to become slightly heavy. "Very well, Emperor, since that's the case, please allow me and Miss Holy Maiden of Holy Stone Cult to accompany us as guards." Zhang Zipei bowed. "The two of you are the people I trust the most. I will naturally bring you along with me." The Great East Emperor said, "Also, I need you to inquire about something before we go to the trade planet." "Please instruct me, Emperor," Zhang Zipei replied. "I remember there's a very famous restaurant on the trade planet in the Central Territory called Manjianglu." "Yes, there is such a place. May I ask if Emperor is inviting a friend?" "No, I want to eat it myself." The Great East Emperor thought for a bit, then said cautiously, "Go ask the chef over there if he knows how to make crispy noodle snacks." Lotus Sun, Wang Zhen and Zhang Zipei. Chapter 1860. This question was more like the secret code used by intelligence agents in spy films. It made the other three people, except for the Great East Emperor, raise their heads. They looked at each other, and although they didn't say anything, they had already activated the team telepathy spell. "No way, it can't be so coincidental." Wang Zhen winked at Zhang Zizi in the dark. "Calm down," Zhang Zizi advised, tilting his head. At the same time, he had an expression of disbelief on his face. Maybe this is a special hobby shared by strong people who appreciate each other. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is Lingzhenren. So there really were crispy noodle snacks in ancient times? Lotus Sun was very curious. I'm not sure. Zhang Zizi sweated. He wasn't interested in snacks to begin with. Although he had claimed to have stolen everything before, that was only limited to the more valuable things. But Zhang Zizi still had his doubts about whether this East Great Emperor in front of him was Wang Ling. But the problem is that Ling Jinren isn't that talkative, so I think we should be more cautious about whether East Great Emperor is Ling Jinren or not. Hearing this, Lotus Sun lowered her head and thought for a while before replying, Senior Zhang is right. Student Wang Ling indeed isn't that talkative, but CEO Ing might not be. If Student Wang Ling and CEO Ing are both in East Great Emperor's body, then the person speaking is likely to be CEO Ing. Another possibility is that Student Wang Ling is so awesome. I think he must have entered this mysterious world by himself, instead of being sucked in passively like us. So if Student Wang Ling entered this world of his own accord, then he might have taken the identity of East Great Emperor. This also means that the body Student Wang Ling is using also has East Great Emperor's own consciousness. This series of strong analysis was clear and logical, and there were almost no loopholes in it. Zhang Zizi was instantly stunned. Indeed, after eliminating all the impossibilities, there was only one answer, no matter how impossible the remaining situation was. Awesome, Rongrong. Qingyi always praised you for being smart. After hearing this analysis, Wang Zhen's expression was especially pleasantly surprised. The three of them were discussing in secret using the team telepathy spell, whether they should go one step further and verify Wang Ling's identity with East Great Emperor. At that moment, a familiar voice was suddenly heard. Hee hee, so it's you guys. I thought you guys were a little weird. This was Wang Ying's voice. The three of them hadn't expected Wang Ling and Wang Ying to directly monitor their telepathic communication spell. It's really you, CEO Ying. Then classmate Wang Ling. Hearing the familiar voice, Lotus Sun was instantly pleasantly surprised. He's here too. Didn't the East Great Emperor keep looking at you? Actually, it was the commander who was looking at you. Classmate Wang Ling, is he looking at me? It seems that the sitting posture is slightly familiar. Compared to Goddess Jiaoyang's original appearance, your sitting posture is too obedient. So that's how it is. Lotus Sun's face turned slightly red. She was a little happy. That's right, there's another person besides me and you. However, this person doesn't know about you. I'm the one who has been passing the message on behalf of you. Do you understand what I mean? Understood. The three of them immediately nodded. At that moment, they suddenly heard the deep and magnetic voice of an unfamiliar man. Are you all done recognizing me? This younger brother still has business to attend to. Since you all came in with your upper bodies, please cooperate with me and continue this show. This was the voice of the East Great Emperor. At that moment, the East Great Emperor also joined the team voice chat. It was Wang Ling who had pulled him in. Coupled with Wang Ying's explanation to the East Great Emperor before Wang Ling pulled him in, the East Great Emperor immediately knew what was going on. Sure enough, everything was just as Lotus Sun had guessed. Wang Ling and Wang Ying entered the East Great Emperor's body at the same time. And the East Great Emperor also had his own consciousness. Since the East Great Emperor is here, it's easy. I wonder if this old man can ask the East Great Emperor how on earth we should get out. Zhang Zizi asked. In the team voice chat, Zhang Zizi's voice was his original voice. As soon as he spoke, the East Great Emperor immediately frowned. I know you're Zhang Zizi. Zhang Zizi was startled. The East Great Emperor actually knows who I am? East Great Emperor. I didn't expect you to actually be able to survive until the immemorial cultivation world. This was indeed out of my expectations. You must have stolen a lot of the imperial concubines in my harem. Hearing this, Zhang Zizi broke out in a sweat. You actually know Wang Ling, Wang Zhen and Lotus Sun. East Great Emperor. I'm the East Great Emperor, of course I know. Zhang Zizi. But you never seem to investigate me. East Great Emperor. Why should I investigate you? Instead, I should thank you. You've lightened my burden a lot. Everyone. East Great Emperor. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Just now you asked how to get out. Actually, it's very simple to leave the world of my diary. You just need to cooperate with me to complete the rest of the script. Lotus Sun. Senior, the problem is that we're not the only ones trapped in this world. We haven't found our companions yet. That's even simpler. Since you've entered my diary, you'll be playing the roles that I've written about in my diary, and any character that has appeared before isn't a nobody. East Great Emperor replied. The 4 emperors will be gathering in 2 days, and all the important figures of the 4 territories will be present. You should be able to take this opportunity to find your friends. This is the last performance. Once it's over, the curtain will fall, and you'll be able to return to the modern world. It won't have any impact on your lives. As for the mastermind behind all this, I've already told Great God Wanging everything that needs to be said. I didn't hide anything at all. In short, this great senior behind the scenes isn't simple, and is someone that even we great emperors can't control. Also, this person isn't Dao Ancestor Wang. Zhang Zizi frowned. There aren't many people who can do this. It seems to be Dao Ancestor Wang. But you say it isn't Dao Ancestor Wang. Could there have been someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Dao Ancestor Wang in ancient times? There's always someone better, and even with my current vision, I can't say for sure that there isn't one. At this point, East Great Emperor raised his eyebrows. Since you're also an ancient being, Zhang Zizi, then you should be very clear. Before us ancient beings, the overlords of this universe weren't us cultivators from the old era. Perhaps they haven't gone extinct, and are staring at us from the darkness of the abyss. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the Immortal King will continue to be updated on the new C-Book Pavilion. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the new C-Book Pavilion. Those who like the daily life of the Immortal King, please collect. The daily life of the Immortal King's new books are updated the fastest. Chapter 1861. In ancient times, the trade star of the Central Territory actually referred to an entire galaxy. It was also the only rare pure land that didn't have any power disputes. Cultivators from the forces of the 4 major territories could use their own methods to conduct free trade here. There were all kinds of people from all walks of life, and it had always been a bustling area. There were 108 stars in the entire trade star system, and the upcoming gathering of the 4 emperors would focus on the central trade star. Logically speaking, an emperor's trip would be extremely ostentatious, and a divine beast carriage made up of 12 carefully selected divine beasts was almost the standard for an emperor's trip. But this time, perhaps because East Great Emperor wanted to cater to Wang Ling's usual style, he went the opposite way. He was only dressed in casual clothes. The only people he brought with him were the 3 people who had been in the main hall earlier. It looked like there were 4 people going, but in fact there were 8. After all, there was one living in each person's body. In East Great Emperor's view, it didn't matter whether the others went or not, as long as the great god in his body didn't leave. So even though he was going out incognito, East Great Emperor was especially confident because he had invited a god to possess him. In previous 4 emperors' gatherings, East Great Emperor would send out a lot of people to serve them, and there was no lack of all kinds of heaven-gifted geniuses who had been sent by the East Great Emperor's royal family to the palace to gain experience. In such a bustling place, it was common for the 4 territories to poach each other. Thus, after a 4 emperors' gathering, the number of participants and the number of people they brought would often be different, and even the people who came back would be different. The 4 territories usually looked peaceful, but in private, they were always fighting for talent. For example, the rare battle between East and West Great Emperor this time was also based on this battle for talent. If Goddess Jiaoyang hadn't turned to West Great Emperor and willingly become his pawn, East Great Emperor probably wouldn't have been so passive in the early stages of the battle. Actually, Wang Ling could tell. Currently, the 4 emperors of the 4 territories were still in a situation of mutual checks and balances. Take the battle between East and West Great Emperor for example. Although West Great Emperor had bestowed Goddess Jiaoyang with power, in fact he hadn't personally fought on the battlefield in the end. Furthermore, his goal was only to help the blazing sun goddess ascend to the throne, not to directly annex the Eastern Territory and attempt to become the great emperor of the Eastern and Western territories. It just so happened that these great emperors were very sensitive to the battle between great emperors. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Given the current situation, it was necessary for any of the domains to exist. Once this balance was broken, it would lead to a war between the cultivators of the 4 domains. The central trade star was full of ancient cities built from ancient bricks, just like what Wang Ling had imagined. If these buildings had been placed in modern times, they would have been an exceptionally magnificent relic of ancient cultivators. It was just that it was very rare for Wang Ling to see something of this scale in modern cultivation life. Even the holy beast King Luoxia King's remains that he had visited before was just a drop in the bucket compared to the eternal world. After entering the central trade star, Lotus Sun saw some silver-armored guards of the ancient city flying in the air with all kinds of magic weapons in their hands. They looked alert and had sharp gazes, and as they flew in the air, they gave off a great sense of dignity and oppression. Isn't it said that the central region doesn't belong to any force? Lotus Sun couldn't help asking curiously. Miss Sun, you might not know, but these ancient city guards were selected by the great emperors of the 4 domains to guard this place. They are present in all the galaxies of the central region. Furthermore, every ancient city guard is of royal blood. Zhang Zizi explained, according to the 4 domains trade agreement, every 10 years, the 4 great emperors of the 4 domains will personally select the elites of the royal families in the central region to be on duty here. This is also a kind of experience. Once they return from their shifts, the members of the royal family will be rewarded by the great emperors. It's a benefit that's hard to describe with words. Great Emperor East laughed on the spot at these words. It looks like you've visited the homes of these royal families before. Of course, Zhang Zizi admitted generously without any hesitation. You're so generous. Wang Ying couldn't help laughing. It's all in the past. What's there to talk about? Besides, I, Zhang Zizi, have always only taken money, and have never relied on my realm to murder people for money. Zhang Zizi said, the central region may be peaceful, but that's only because of these ancient city guards. If you obtain some supreme treasure in the central region, you'll be in danger after you leave, and you might be targeted. You mean killing people and robbing them? Wang Ying asked. That's right. Zhang Zizi nodded. Unlike the modern cultivation world, the primordial era didn't have such sound laws, and there were too many unruly people. One Earth can be governed, but the galaxies are so big that there are bound to be places that can't be controlled. And these lawless places are places where all kinds of evil thrives. They used the team voice spell to discuss this. In fact, after hearing what Zhang Zizi said, Wang Ling was suddenly very curious about one thing. Would they directly run into Zhang Zizi and Li Xian from the primordial era, while attending the 4 emperors gathering this time? After all, Dao ancestor Wang hadn't locked them up in the corpse picture at this time. The 4 emperors gathering was a big event, and many cultivators from all walks of life would come to watch. At the same time, it would greatly increase the overall trade volume of the trading galaxy. Once the overall trade volume increased, it meant that there would be more cultivators who would be able to find supreme treasures. These were all Zhang Zizi's targets. Thus, he thought it would be very interesting to run into the Zhang Zizi from before. Wang Ling and the others settled down in a restaurant. To Wang Ling's disappointment, the chef didn't know how to make crispy noodle snacks. But Wang Ling took this opportunity to hear some other secrets. Did you hear? The Emperor of the East region displayed the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King Dharma form. It's simply terrifying. This shows that the great emperors all have trump cards. It's better not to provoke them. Those who covet the throne are simply courting death. But the Emperor of the West region doesn't seem convinced, and plans to sell some of the spoils of war he won in his fight with the Emperor of the East region at this auction. Those are immortal objects from the East region Imperial Palace, and are priceless. Ha ha ha. The Emperor of the West region himself never thought that the great Emperor of the East would hide such a trump card. He's definitely flustered and exasperated, so he can only look for a supplement here. but from what I see, it's not certain that this supplement will work. Brother, what do you mean? I heard that the famous godly thief Zhang Zizi is about to make a move. He says he wants to steal something that the Emperor of the West region is planning to auction. Is this true? It's true. The central auction house has already received a notice from Zhang Zizi. Hearing this, Wang Ling and the others were all shocked. They could already see that Zhang Zizi, who was playing the role of Yi Run, was already holding his forehead with his head lowered. It was obvious that he also didn't want to face this part of history. Wang Ling was astonished. So it turned out that in ancient times, there was a bad habit of sending notice of theft, deliberately notifying others first before stealing something. This was too Chinibu. Chapter 1862. There was no doubt that this was no different from a public execution for Zhang Ziqin. Although Wang Ling had already had a premonition, he still felt that it was incomparably amazing. Zhang Ziqin actually had to face his dark history again after thousands of years, and his mood at that moment must be exceptionally complicated. It was clear that Zhang Ziqin was blindly confident in his treasure-stealing skills, and didn't even care about the Emperor at all. He really had a lot of guts to directly steal something that the Emperor had put up for auction. So in history, was the theft successful this time? Wang Jin couldn't help asking curiously. Of course it was successful, Zhang Ziqin said with a proud expression on his face. West's great emperor didn't want to kill you? Wang Jin asked again. He couldn't wait to skin me and chop off my hand. But at the time, he underestimated me and didn't care about me at all. That's not right. I remember that according to history, it didn't seem to be successful. East's great emperor said at that moment. Actually, it was successful. Zhang Ziqin chuckled. But in order to save face, West's great emperor used a temporary replica to sell it, and then ordered people to buy it back at a high price. To the outside world, he just said that I, Zhang Ziqin, had failed in the theft. I, Zhang Ziqin, have never failed in the industry. How could I let him spread rumors? At that time, I was furious and decided to carry out a precise revenge. So, I almost didn't let off any of the imperial concubines in West's great emperor's harem. So although I, Zhang Ziqin, haven't married, I should have left behind a lot of children. I found out that Senior Zhang, it's really a miracle that you survived. Lotus Sun couldn't help giving him a like in the team voice spell. Logically speaking, Zhang Ziqin's realm hadn't reached its peak yet, but he had actually survived the emperor's pursuit. This was really not easy. Central Trade Star, Central Auction House. This was the largest auction house that integrated the 108 stars of the entire Trade Star system. All the most precious treasures and big deals on the Trade Star would be gathered here. There was still some time before the four emperors gathering, so East's great emperor decided to come to the auction house to join in the fun. This was originally a historical event, so he had to go. The magnificent palace with richly ornamented beams and painted rafters occupied a vast area. Wang Ling saw several real divine beasts guarding the gate, who exuded an imposing aura without being angry, crouching at the gate under the lead of the auction house manager. An ancient lion-dragon beast. I've read about it in the ancient records at home, Wang Jin exclaimed. As the name implied, the lion flood dragon beast had the head of a lion and the tail of a flood dragon. Its body was huge, like two small mountains. It was a famous divine beast from ancient times. It was extremely difficult to tame, but once it was tamed, it would be loyal and devoted to its master. It was not easy for a capable person to tame one. Every time the central auction house held an auction, there would be a total of 4 tamed primordial lion-dragon beasts guarding the entrance. It was enough to show how powerful the owner behind the auction house was. A few years ago, I remember that there were only 2 divine beasts guarding the gate, lion flood dragon beasts. I didn't expect there to be for this year. Moreover, they were all adults. The owner of the central auction house is indeed powerful. An old woman with snow-white hair coiled up high stepped out of a bronze chariot with the help of a walking stick. She had a kind face and exuded an imposing aura without being angry. She was a top expert in secret. With one glance, Wang Ling could tell that this old woman was no ordinary person. At the very least, she was a progenitor expert who had just entered the Dao ancestor realm not long ago. This is the leader of a mortal mountain sect, Madame Shan Xiao. Zhang Zi secretly introduced her. So it's the leader. No wonder she has such an extraordinary bearing, Lotus Sun exclaimed. Cultivators from ancient times had retained their most primitive style, and were of all shapes and sizes, which was very different from modern cultivation society. This wasn't something that could be found in school textbooks in the modern cultivation world. Seeing with one's eyes and feeling with one's heart would be of great help and enlightenment. Welcome, Madame Shan Xiao. As soon as the auction house manager saw the old woman, he immediately knew who she was and bowed in greeting. Madame Shan Xiao nodded slightly with a kind expression on her face. She swept her gaze over the 4 divine beasts guarding the gate, then walked in unhurriedly. Even a progenitor expert would feel a little pressure in the face of these 4 enormous divine beasts guarding the gate. If even a grand progenitor expert felt this way, then the rest of the people who had entered the auction house were even more apprehensive. So scary. Don't worry, these lion flood dragons have been tamed. They won't attack people without orders. Passing by the gate, an insider said. They guard the gate and serve as a good deterrent. It's also a kind of screening. Those who are too weak aren't qualified to enter the central auction house. They'll faint as soon as they pass through the gate. I see. Hearing this, a passerby on the side nodded hurriedly. But there's still something I don't understand. Why did they put 4 at the gate this time? It's said that the famous godly thief Zhang Zidi will be here today to steal the great emperor's auction items, so 2 more were added at the last minute. Wang Ling and the others. Great Emperor East was puzzled in the team telepathy spell. It definitely wouldn't be a problem for you to go in with Li Ren's body, but with your realm at the time, could you enter the auction house without a hitch? There's only one entrance to the central auction house, and the rest of the hall is protected by a barrier. If you want to get inside, you can only go through the main gate. Indeed. In a trance, Zhang Zidi also felt like his memory was a little messed up. In my memory, it was very smooth to enter the central auction house back then. And there shouldn't have been so many gatekeeping divine beasts at all. So this emperor has always wondered if you were bragging. Great Emperor East was speechless. He never had a very good impression of Zhang Zidi. His only good impression was that Zhang Zidi had harmed Great Emperor West's imperial concubines later in history. Although a small number of Great Emperor East's imperial concubines had also been harmed by Zhang Zidi. But while Zhang Zidi was a scourge, he didn't leave behind any seeds to sprout in the East Imperial Palace next year, unlike Great Emperor West's side, which was already a vast prairie. Whether I'm bragging or not, we'll know later. Zhang Zidi snickered. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Let's go in first. Great Emperor East waved his hand, too lazy to bicker with Zhang Zidi. Dressed in civilian clothes, they pretended to be passers-by cultivators, with Wang Ling, who was playing the role of Great Emperor East, walking at the front. At that moment, Wang Ling could feel the auction house manager's gaze on him as he moved, as well as the gazes of the 4 gatekeeping lion-dragon beasts. This was originally a kind of deterrence. Everyone who entered the central auction house would experience this kind of intense gaze to prove that they had a high enough realm to enter the auction house and participate in the transaction. However, something unexpected happened. Just as the gazes of the 4 lion-dragon beasts fell on Wang Ling, a terrifying and dangerous aura was instantly reflected back at him. All spiritual pressure and oppressive gazes had no effect on Wang Ling, and instead triggered Wang Ling's passive ability to reflect oppression, just for a moment. The eyes of the 4 gatekeeping lion-dragon beasts widened as they sweated profusely. Because there were so many people entering at the same time, they had no idea who on earth was reflecting this oppressive force. It was just that when that person passed through the gate, it was as if a large machete had been directly pressed against their necks, making them feel cold all over. Rumble. Just as Wang Ling entered the auction house, there was the rumble of a huge object falling to the ground in front of the gate. The commotion was so huge that the ground beneath their feet trembled. Wang Ling never thought that just by walking through the gate, he would actually scare off 4 lion-dragon beasts. He sighed in his heart. This was too useless. What kind of divine beasts were they? They weren't even as strong as his loopy toad. Chapter 1863. The gatekeeping divine beasts had suddenly fallen to the ground, and none of the 4 lion flood dragons were left. They were all foaming at the mouth and twitching on the ground, and no one knew what had happened. Even so, the central auction house's management was still orderly. They were usually prepared for this kind of emergency response, but it was a little rare for all the gatekeeping divine beasts to fall at once. A tall woman in a cheongsam with an almost perfect figure and a communications jade in her hand gave instructions on the spot. Her name was Chun Yanan, the head of the central auction house's management team, and she was responsible for maintaining order in the auction house. Team 1, listen to my command. Immediately use the backup gatekeeping divine beasts. Team 2, move all 4 lion flood dragons away, and don't cause a jam in front of the auction house. Chun Yanan reacted quickly and spoke quickly. In addition, I need to report this to the president. I will personally report the situation to him. And in the meantime, you will take over maintaining order in front of the door, and listen to the deputy manager's command. After entering the auction house, Wang Ling immediately heard all the arrangements in front of the door. It could only be said that this central auction house was more formidable than he had imagined. After all, this was during the 4 emperors' gathering, and it was a serious incident for the gatekeeping divine beasts to make such a mistake. However, the central auction house hadn't been thrown into disarray by this unexpected situation, which showed how well prepared their emergency response was. But after what had happened, there was suddenly more to talk about in the auction house's hall, and it instantly became even livelier. Strange, these 4 lion flood dragons are full of energy and are plump and strong. They don't look sick at all. Why did they suddenly faint? Didn't that Zhang Zidi say he was going to steal Great West Emperor's auction item today? Maybe he did it. That's right. It must be Zhang Zidi. Maybe he's already snuck in. But that doesn't make sense. Is Zhang Zidi's realm that strong? Even if he did it, is it possible for him to take down 4 divine beasts at once? God knows. He's been sneaking around all day. Maybe he managed to steal some secret medicine that instantly increased his strength. Several cultivators who had come to participate in the auction were talking loudly in the hall, and Zhang Zidi, who was pretending to be Li Run, broke out in a cold sweat. Now he finally knew why there hadn't been so many gatekeeping divine beasts when he had come back then. Moreover, he also knew why he was being hunted by the Great West Emperor and the president of the central auction house after the end of the auction. This bank manager was a lion flood dragon fanatic and loved his 4 lion flood dragons very much. Chun Yanan had never seen the Great Eastern Emperor before, and when faced with him who was out incognito this time, she had no idea what kind of background this plainly dressed young man in front of her was. Thus, she kindly reminded Wang Ling that there was a minimum expenditure in this private room, and that he had to guarantee that he would win at least 1 treasure in this auction before he could sit. I understand the rules. The Great Eastern Emperor smiled, then waved his hand to indicate that Zhang Zizi would pay. Li Run had already prepared all the expenses for this 4 emperors' assembly in his storage bag. The ancient cultivator's currency was the Chaos Spirit Stone, a spirit stone that combined the power of chaos, which was already extinct in modern cultivation society. Without hesitation, Zhang Zizi directly paid Chun Yanan a full 100 million Chaos Spirit Stones as a deposit for the private room. If they didn't win at least 1 treasure in the end, the deposit couldn't be refunded. Sir is generous. Chun Yanan nodded in satisfaction. She was just doing things according to the rules, and didn't mean to look down on anyone. After all, the people who could enter this auction house weren't simple. After receiving the deposit, Chun Yanan personally escorted them in, then saluted at the door before slowly strolling away. She's just a central auction house administrator, but she doesn't know the seniors? She was incredulous. The people in the imperial palace rarely go out, so it's normal that she doesn't know them. Li Run is Great Eastern Emperor's personal guard, and even fewer outsiders know about him. Zhang Zizi replied through the team voice spell. Also, even if they're lucky enough to meet the emperor, most people don't have enough cultivation to see his true face. This answer instantly made her understand. This effect was similar to Wang Ling's Great Shielding spell. Great Eastern Emperor. We just spent 100 million, how much do we have left? In the private room, Zhang Zizi immediately imitated Li Ren's tone and replied, Your Majesty, there are 2 billion Chaos Spirit Stones left. Great Eastern Emperor was shocked. But I remember that I only had Li Ren prepare 500 million. Zhang Zizi chuckled. It's like this, I couldn't help it just now. And it was a little smooth. If everyone is a little smooth they won't notice. Wang Ling Wang Ying Wang Zhen Lotus Sunday. As expected of you. Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Senior Zhang, I thought you'd changed, this is bad behavior. Zhang Zizi couldn't help sighing. Under the influence of the rule of law in modern cultivation society, it's been a long time since I've done something like this except for when I have to carry out missions. But now that I'm back here, I still can't help it. It's a conditioned reflex, I can't blame it all on me. It's fine if I don't use the money later, I'll donate it all. I'll just think of it as robbing the rich to help the poor. It's an important auction during the assembly of the 4 emperors, and they actually let a hothead be the auctioneer? If the auction item is a heaven treasure, will he faint as soon as he touches it? Don't look down on this little brother. His name is Lu Renwan. I heard that he's the son of the Central Auction House's president. At the age of 9, he already had a sage body. He's stronger than many of you sitting here. The moment he said that, many people instantly fell silent. Becoming a sage at the age of 9. What kind of concept was that? Without a doubt, he was a genius. For a long time, the identity of the president of the Central Auction House had been a mysterious existence in the hearts of many people. But they had never thought that this president's son would be so heaven-defying. If the son's aptitude was already like this, then wouldn't the father's talent be even more astonishing? Wang Ling sat in the VIP room at the top, taking in everything at a glance. There were also auction houses like this in modern cultivation society, but Wang Ling had never been interested in the magic treasures being auctioned. None of them could beat the things in his king's treasure pants. Can I temporarily join the auction? Wang Ying asked. This was something that was not allowed in the modern cultivation society. Modern cultivators were very particular about rules and regulations, and required that all prepared items for auction be rigorously appraised in advance to ensure that there were no errors. They absolutely weren't allowed to join the auction midway. This was because there was a huge risk of substandard or fake goods. After all, it was very difficult to appraise a magic treasure in a very short period of time. This was a great test of an appraiser's ability, and if there was a mistake in the appraisal, the substandard or fake goods would be sold. Then in modern society, this auction house's life would come to an end. But it was very clear that in the eternal world, auction houses didn't have that many complicated rules. Hearing Wang Ying's question, East Great Emperor immediately replied in the team voice spell. Of course. But there are requirements for the items to be auctioned. Why? Do you want to add something to the auction? Won't it affect the course of history? Wang Ying asked cautiously. No. East Great Emperor shook his head without hesitation. After receiving his reply, Wang Ying also received Wang Ling's instructions, and continued to communicate with East Great Emperor. Very well, I'll give you something to sell later. As soon as the voice in the private room fell, the first item from the auction house was brought to the stage. It was an extremely exquisite bowl-shaped vessel that was completely transparent. It was made of a material similar to jade, and even its luster was similar. However, this was definitely not an ordinary jade bowl, but rather an undying artifact that was nurtured from the primal chaos. A natural all-life bowl, a treasure born from chaos. It has a 20% concentration of chaos. Wearing white gloves, the president's son, Lu Runwen, introduced the bowl's origin to everyone in a very professional manner. He touched it directly with his hands, completely unafraid of the primal chaos chi that seeped out of this chaos weapon. With the help of the projector ball magic treasure, an image of the bowl was magnified into the air, so that all the auction participants could clearly see all the details of the bowl. In the end, she's Jiaochu with a sage body. She's too strong to directly touch a chaos weapon. My focus seems to be wrong. A bowl with a 20% concentration of chaos is indeed very rare. But why is it called the All-Life Bowl? A lot of people were curious. Then Lu Renwen began to introduce its currently known effects in more detail. After many experiments in this line, the results show that the All-Life Bowl has the effect of replication. The All-Life Bowl has the effect of replication. For example, as long as you place an intact elixir in the bowl, after a period of time, a new replicated elixir will be completely replicated in the bowl. However, the efficacy of the replicated elixir will be reduced to 52% to 78% of the original elixir, and it will consume the All-Life Bowl's concentration of chaos. The concentration of chaos can recover on its own. As long as you're not greedy and don't overuse it in one go, you can maintain this ability. Of course, if the concentration of chaos is directly replicated to zero, the bowl will directly shatter. The precise calculation and the incomparably detailed introduction of the magic treasure directly proved the professionalism of the central auction house. And Lu Renwen's introduction instantly caused many of the cultivators present to be tempted to be able to directly replicate elixirs. If a high-quality treasure or tonic was placed inside, once the replication was successful, it meant that one could absorb even more medicinal efficacy. Furthermore, as long as one wasn't greedy, this bowl could be used continuously. This was undoubtedly a huge temptation to the cultivators who were bitterly searching for a breakthrough in the ancient times. Chapter 1865. This was a chaos tool with a special function. It was very unusual. However, in reality, there were countless chaos tools that were born naturally in the universe that had special functions. There was a dazzling variety of abilities, but most of them were useless and impractical, and could only be broken down into fine particles and refined into chaos crystals to help the ancient ones cultivate. But this life and all things bowl's function was a little unusual, and actually had the special ability of a treasure bowl. Wang Ling felt that if he could enchant it, the replica created by this bowl might be far more powerful than the original. But he wasn't interested in this bowl. Even if these ancient ones were going to fight over it, it was just a bowl to him. Among the Heaven's Path techniques, his great replication technique could perfectly achieve this function. In the next few minutes, Chun Yanan was in charge of delivering the bowl upstairs to the VIP rooms that were interested in it. The god-level tycoons in the VIP rooms had the right to touch and appraise it at close range. If they were interested, they just needed to light the red spirit lantern hanging in front of the door. After injecting some spirit energy into it, the lantern would light up completely. This bowl is very good. The concentration of chaos is also suitable, and there's a lot of room for improvement. If you take it to an expert refiner and modify it, it'll have a bright future, said an old woman. This was none other than Madame Shanxiu, the head of Immortal Mountain sect. This was a rare praise from an almighty, and instantly made everyone even more interested in the bowl. Just when Wang Ling thought that someone was going to make an extremely outrageous bid in the end, in the main hall below, a young man in a luxurious outer robe raised his hand. I bid 10,000 chaos spirit stones. Wang Ling choked when he heard this. 10,000 chaos spirit stones? He had thought that this bowl would cost at least 1 million. Furthermore, everyone present seemed to have brought a lot of money with them, ranging from millions to tens of millions. Otherwise, Zhang Zipei wouldn't have been able to steal so much at once. In the end, Wang Ling was a little surprised that the person below had only bid 10,000. Chaos weapons are so cheap? Wang Ying was also amazed and immediately asked. It's not that chaos weapons are cheap, it's that chaos spirit stones are valuable. Everyone here is a dignitary, so it's normal for them to bring a lot of money. But this is how things should be. Zhang Zipei answered. It was only now that Wang Ling finally understood how wasteful. It was for East's great emperor to directly have Zhang Zi stake 100 million spirit stones for this VIP room. The East's great emperor also smiled. It's mainly because this is the first auction item. He wouldn't ask for such a high price. The good stuff was at the back. Wang Ling saw a few people below stand up as if they were performing a group comedy. This skull of the Jade Fire Primordial Thunder and Lightning Universe, Shaking Devil Tianxiang, Eight-Eyed Nine-Tailed Steel-Winged Skyfire Four-Legged Beast, is something I must have. I offer 200,000 Chaos Spirit Stones. If fellow Taoists are willing to let me have it, I will be eternally grateful. Hee, do you think this skull is yours just because you said the name smoothly? Someone immediately stood up and said unconvinced. It was as if he was deliberately competing to see who had the smoothest tongue. He read out the complete string of names even faster. My lord is very interested in the skull of the Jade Fire Primordial Thunder and Lightning Universe, Shaking Devil Tianxiang, Eight-Eyed Nine-Tailed Steel-Winged Skyfire Four-Legged Beast, and hopes to use it in medicine. Whoever dares to snatch it. Once you leave the Central Territory with the skull, be careful of your life. I offer 280,000 Chaos Spirit Stones. Only 280,000? Brother, there's no point in threatening others here. I offer 500,000. A middle-aged man laughed. He had slicked back blonde hair and was dressed in gorgeous clothes. Judging from his aura, he was also a big shot. No one knows this Jade Fire Primordial Thunder and Lightning Universe, Shaking Devil Tianxiang, Eight-Eyed Nine-Tailed Steel-Winged Skyfire Four-Legged Beast better than me. It's only in my hands that it can display its true value. The opening bid of 500,000 instantly gave Wang Ling a sense of the rich and overbearing atmosphere of an auction house. Wang Ling could also see it now. For these godly tycoons, it actually didn't matter how much an item was sold for. Whether it was expensive or cheap, the first thing was to have momentum. Sometimes, an item was sold for a high price not because it was worth the money, but mostly because of the higher-ups. Chapter 1866. For the sake of a spirit beast skull, these ancient dignitaries in the hall were all in a frenzy. The skull of an ancient divine beast like this had an extraordinary origin. What was even more precious was that this skull symbolized the origin of several bloodlines. Even if he didn't use it after buying it, there was still a lot of room for appreciation if he kept it by his side. Of course, although it was good, it was still useless to him. We have to bid for this skull. I remember that you were the final winner of this skull, Zhang Zipi said at that moment. East's great emperor nodded. Bid. Zhang Zipi. How much is appropriate? East's great emperor. I didn't write down the specific details in my diary, but it doesn't matter. Just make sure this skull is mine. But my suggestion is that we don't bid in this round. We can put up an auction item and use the proceeds from the auction to offset the cost. As soon as he said this, Zhang Zipi immediately looked enlightened. Right. I remember. That's what happened. Back then, you sold one thing and used the money from that thing to buy a bunch of things, but I can't remember what you sold. After all, the timeline spanned a long time, and Zhang Zipi only had vague memories of what had happened in the past, and had long since forgotten the specific details. At that moment, East's great emperor suddenly smiled meaningfully. This thing isn't mine. It's an auction item provided by Guru Wang Ying. Wang Ling was blank when he heard this. He hadn't expected things to fall back on him so soon. He had been thinking about what to sell, but according to old Wang's family rules, he couldn't use his own abilities to make money, so it was obviously inappropriate to take out the divine objects in Wang Jibao's pants for auction. After thinking for a long time, a slender object with a golden flash and a vortex finally appeared in front of East's great emperor. What powerful spirit power! No. It's not just spirit power. There are many other sources of energy. There's also rich primal chaos chi. East's great emperor's eyes instantly lit up. There was no doubt that this shiny slender object gave him a pleasant surprise, as if he had drawn a golden legend. His reaction was quick. and he immediately lit the lantern in front of the VIP room to call the appraiser upstairs. Come take a look. How much can this item be sold for? The East Great Emperor had a confident look on his face as he handed the golden thread to the appraiser. The appraiser took it with both hands. Before he could appraise it, he smelled a strong fragrance. After a moment of careful observation, the auctioneer revealed an incomparably shocked expression. Forgive this old man's poor eyesight. I really can't tell what kind of divine beast's hair this is. So, you can't sell it? No, of course it can be sold. The old appraiser looked excited. This thing is too strong. Not only does a tiny strand of hair emit a refreshing fragrance like a spring breeze, it actually contains such a powerful energy. If we can obtain this divine beast's hair, we can use it to refine elixirs or use it to refine weapons. There will be extraordinary benefits. It can even be used as the core of a formation. With this hair as the eye of the formation, it can change the flow of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, aiding in the cultivation of spiritual chi. If the sect is built around this formation, they won't have to worry about the loss of spiritual chi for thousands of years. This introduction made everyone dumbfounded. Lotus Sun laughed. Is it really that valuable? Could old Sir have made a mistake? This old man definitely won't make a mistake. It's just that I can't tell what kind of divine beast's hair it is, so I wanted to ask. Sorry, I don't know either. East Great Emperor spread his hands. I just happened to obtain it. I haven't verified what kind of divine beast it is yet. There's no other way. If we want to participate in the auction, we can only package it up for this hair, the appraiser said. Package it up? How? Wang Zhen asked. It's to perfect the information on this divine beast's hair. Make up a story. The old appraiser wasn't surprised as he said, for example, do you really think there's a divine beast with such a long name? That's just something we made up. It's actually made up. Lotus Sun was shocked. There's no other way. In order to make the product look better, we can only package it up. The appraiser said, the name is long to make people feel unfamiliar with this divine beast. But all the participants in the auction are dignitaries in the cultivation world, and it's impossible for them to publicly say that they don't know the origin of this divine beast. Thus, no one will care about the authenticity of this divine beast's name. On the contrary, in order to show that they are familiar with this divine beast, no matter how long the name is, they'll say it without a single mistake. Otherwise, do you think that such a long name is for those unscrupulous biographers to fill up the word count? I see. Lotus Sun was enlightened. Wang Ling, the appraiser. I'm telling you all this because I want to tell you that we're on the same team now. In order to sell it at a high price, we need everyone's cooperation. No matter how outrageous the story is, you have to stay calm. Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But we don't know how to make up stories. At most, we can think of a name. The appraiser thought for a while, then said calmly, that's easy. Just think of a name, and leave the rest to us. A few minutes later, Lu Runwen received this piece of divine beast hair that had been added to the auction at the last minute, along with a written description. The divine beast hair had already been covered in a cover, and it was packaged extremely well. The expression on his face was very calm as he skimmed through the description, then said in a loud voice, Ladies and gentlemen, the first temporary auction item of this auction has been produced. This is an item provided by the guest in Heavenly Room 1, and the proceeds from this auction can be used directly for other auctions in this auction. After saying that, he opened the black cover, and in an instant, the shiny golden hair gave off an incomparably dazzling light. Lu Runwen said, As you can see according to the professional appraisal results of our appraiser, this is a very, very rare piece of divine beast hair. The hair of a perfect Tianluo raccoon. What? So it's the hair of a perfect Tianluo raccoon. I've heard of this divine beast. Oh my god. Such strong spirit power. No. It's not just spirit power, there's other types of energy. Especially the density of the primal chaos chi. It's really frightening. My god, so it's a perfect Tianluo raccoon. Where on earth does the guest in room 1 come from? How can he have such a divine item? The energy in this hair is too strong, far greater than that of the skull that was just brought up. If I refine it, I might be able to attain immortality. Fill my body so that I never dry up. He himself never expected that a single strand of hair he had enchanted would actually be blown away like this. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the immortal king will continue to be updated on the new Sea Pavilion of books. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the new Sea Pavilion of books. If you like the daily life of the immortal king, please collect. The daily life of the immortal king is updated the fastest in the new Sea Pavilion of books. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.